Started yet? Hello? Can I get your attention? I handed out part 2 of the weekly questionnaire. I'd appreciate if you could fill it out. That'll count as your attendance. Well, one of the ways I track attendance. And there's also a crossword. This is intended to be a collaborative activity if you can. It's just like vocab of things you should know in this space. So if you do that, and also please put your name and college or office or position or what you represent at the top. Thank you.
Manage gas.
Yeah.
And then can I send you something?
Yes. Please. See you.
No rest. Rest is for the wicked. Come on, come on.
Send it to the parliamentarian.
Parliamentarian, okay. And then I was wondering if you could put it up on the board.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi, Teddy. All the best. We're excited for you.
You the new senator for LIP?
Yes.
How are you? Good. I'm Nick as a speaker. Good. Are you excited?
Yes, it's exciting. It's nice. We were hungry in the house. It was very nice. I realized to just come and see what
Apparently you liked what you saw, so it didn't scare you away too much.
so you to see.
Are you okay for us?
Yeah, I just did a run. Okay, if you can put that up.
Okay.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for being part of it.
Oh, can you open it up?
No.
Sorry. Can you scroll down? Can you like format it? Zoom out.
Wait.
Thank you, zoom out.
Just a moment. Let me share the screen.
Got me doing it?
Yeah, you can do it. Share the screen with Zoom.
With Zoom? You can do that. It's fine. Yeah. Which one? Okay, one second. Testing. This is last week's response. I'm gonna do a word art each part. Like question 1, we're gonna. You know what? That's fine.
Okay, I'm sorry.
But yeah, these are the movies people watch or their favorite. So we're gonna do one for the first question, and that first question is: you wake up stranded on an island in the middle of the Pacific. The palm trees sway in harmony with the glorious blue tides. You cannot remember how you got there, other than your last memory of traveling to see your great aunt deliver a secret family recipe. What baked good was the recipe for? So next week we're gonna have another one. It'll probably be in the shape of a pie, but yeah, this is how I spend my free time. So thanks, guys. Remember, put your name and your college at the top of our office. Thank you.
Perhaps I cannot share the screen with Zoom.
It's fine. I'll send it to him.
No, but Nick,
We ready?
no, I cannot share the screen on Zoom. Where the meeting can
Enter Max.
Okay, we're ready now.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
Everybody good to go?
Did you pass out like all across?
Hello, everyone. It's my pleasure to call the 10th session of the 52nd Senate to order. Before we get into business, I would like to note the bill that we passed for the House of Ovis funding was signed in by President Long today. Let's keep it up. I'll begin with the pledge. Please stand and join me if you're willing and able. pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The land acknowledgement. Colorado State University acknowledges with respect that the land we are on today is the traditional and ancestral homelands of the Arapaho, Cheyenne, and Ute nations and peoples. This was also a site of trade, gathering, and healing for numerous other native tribes. We recognize the indigenous peoples as original stewards of this land and all the relatives within it. As these words of acknowledgement are spoken and heard, the ties nations have to their traditional homelands are renewed and reaffirmed. CSU is founded as a land-grant institution, and we accept that our mission must encompass access to education and inclusion. And significantly, that our founding came at a dire cost to Native nations and peoples whose land this university was built upon. This acknowledgement is the education and inclusion we must practice in recognizing our institutional history, responsibility, and commitment. Now we'll swear in the new senators and associate senators. So if you're new, go ahead and come to the front and we'll swear you in.
What?
I had no idea. I had no idea. Hello.
Thank you.
The Deputy Chief Justice will administer the oath of office.
Hello, everybody. All right, are you all ready? You could just all repeat the oath at the same time. All right, I state your name.
I, Rex Norskowski,
Do solemnly swear to defend and uphold
do solemnly swear to defend and uphold
the rules and regulations set forth
the rules and regulations set forth
by the Constitution of the Associated Students of Colorado State University
by the Constitution of the Associated Students of Colorado State University,
and will rightfully perform the duties of my office
and rightfully perform the duties of my office
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
No matter how much he said he wouldn't, Ben came back. All right, for the new senators or associates, if you don't have a placard yet, go ahead and fold up a piece of paper and write your name on it. That's how you'll vote or be called upon to speak. We get into beginning a roll call. The clerk will call the roll.
Speaker DeSalvo,
Here.
Speaker Pro Tempore Saraceno,
Caracito Perez.
Apasu Bakari,
Present.
Senator Ambunami. Here. Associate Senator Aslan. Here. Chair Athey. Here. Associate Senator Barron. Associate Senator Barton. Senator Bilodeau. Senator Bouchara. Here. Senator Cordero. Senator Correa.
Present.
Senator Denson.
Present.
Senator Doyle.
Here.
Senator Epperson. Here. Senator Gebru.
Present.
Senator Gottschall.
Here.
Senator Johnson. Here. Senator Juarez. Here. Senator Kilburn.
Here.
Senator Kramer.
Here.
Senator Laffey. Present. Senator Lowe.
Here.
Were they here?
Present.
Senator McCall. Here. Senator Milka. Senator Nguyen.
Here.
He's on Zoom.
Senator Pareso. Here. Senator Pereira. Senator Reese.
Here.
Chair Rencher. Here. Chair Salazar.
Here.
Senator Sanchez. Here. Chair Schumer. Senator Shetty.
Here.
Parliamentarian Sinarika.
Here.
Senator Taylor.
Here.
Senator Thompson.
Here.
Chair Trout.
Present.
Senator Vega. Senator Parker. Senator Dietz.
Here.
Senator Ayala. Here. Senator Hill.
I'm present.
Senator Ritter. Senator Schmidt.
Present. Senator Ritter.
Senator Schmidt.
Present.
Senator McHale. Senator Morgan.
Present.
Associate Senator Jacobs. Associate Senator Melchior.
Present, also Senator now.
Associate Senator Hubley.
Here.
Senator Lazoya.
Here.
Senator Weaver.
Here.
Associate Senator Chacon. Here. Senator Belker. Senator Graham.
Present.
Associate Senator Bernard. Present. Senator Zhao. Associate Senator Laffey. Present. At the end of the meeting, can any new senators come tell me your name so I can put you in roll call?
Is there anyone who isn't new that was not called? Cool. It is great to see. This is probably the fullest this chamber has been in years. Something to celebrate. All right, we'll get into the consent agenda. Is there any dissent? Charity.
I move to put the consent agenda below all of the reports, so above confidence business, but that way the people who are in our space who are not members don't have to sit through that.
Okay, so all those in favor of moving the consent agenda that contains the minutes right underneath judicial reports, so the visitors here can get their business done sooner. So I'll do this by placard. All those in favor, please raise your placard. It'll give us a good idea. Okay, go ahead and put it down. All the no votes. Two abstentions. With a vote of 42 to 2-1, this motion passes. The parliamentarian will reflect that change. So with that change being reflected, we'll now move into gallery input. Is there anyone from the gallery who wishes to speak at this time? Seeing none, we do have a guest speaker. If you could pull up the slides.
It's up to you if you want to use.
This one, right?
Yeah.
PPT.
It's up to you if you want to.
I think I can see the screen from there. Is it?
Yeah.
Sparkling water. It's sparkling water.
Yeah. You could use that one or this one. It's fine.
Okay, is this, oh, either one, is that fine over there? Okay, I'll use that one.
It'll probably be easier to see.
Okay. Can you hear me?
No.
Oh. There we go. Can you hear me now? Great. All right, thank you. My name is Mary Pedersen. It's an honor to be here with you tonight. I am the former provost and executive vice president of CSU the last 2 years during the pandemic. And so I haven't had the opportunity to come to visit you here. I think I had one online meeting that I participated in. So it's really, really nice to be here. And I really appreciate giving me time on your agenda as well as reorganizing the schedule for me. So thank you. So I'm here tonight to share with you the process we're going through this year. And actually is something I'm working on as a special role is our reaccreditation process for the university. So how many of you are familiar with university accreditation, reaccreditation? Any idea about it? Anyone have any idea? So accreditation and then reaccreditation, once you get first accredited, is a process to actually ensure quality assurance for a campus. Every single university in the nation that wants to receive any federal aid and is under any type of federal regulations needs to get accreditation. And we have 7 different accrediting agencies or commissions throughout the United States. And Colorado State University is accredited by the Higher Learning Commission. Accreditation usually is a 10-year cycle period. And if you get a full 10 years, that means you're doing very, very well. So 9 years ago, we received a 10-year reaccreditation because we've been accredited for a while. And I'm here to share with you the process we're going through this year, because next year, 1 year from now, our 10 years will be up and we are actually having a site visit to the campus. So my goal tonight is to share with you what is this process, to inform you about it. And then we will have the opportunity later in the year to get input and involvement from you, because when the team comes, and they'll be coming next September, they will ask to meet with anybody they want to meet with. And there's a good chance they always want to meet with students. So they will be meeting with probably this group or some of you or different groups. And so we want to be sure that you're aware of what's happening and what's going on. So the next slide actually shows you kind of what this process looks like. And so when you first want to go through accreditation, you prepare for it, and it's a 1-3-year process. And you prepare an assurance filing. Year 4, you submit a review. And then 5 and 10, there's a quality initiative proposal. We don't need to go into all these details of what those are. You create a report year 7 through 9. And that's what we are doing right now. And then in year 10, you do your comprehensive evaluation for reaffirmation. So I'll explain to you a little bit more what that's about. On the next slide, it really tells you what is the purpose. And I think this is really important to understand. So accreditation is for accountability of the campus. It's for transparency as well as continuous quality improvement. And that continuous quality improvement is probably the overall arching goal. So the federal government has wanted to kind of intercede and intervene in terms of a lot of university guidelines. And when we have regional accreditors, they do this so that we don't have to have the federal government come in and give us a lot of regulations and rules. And so you'll see when I talk about what are the goals and criteria, it's really important that we are able to do this independently from federal regulations. And so on the next slide, you can see that accreditation, the purposes here are to validate the quality of our academic programs. And this is the quality of every program that you are enrolled in for your major. So every single undergraduate and graduate program has to undergo a program review. And then when the team comes, they review some of those. And that's really, really important. It also looks at the institution as a whole. And so this includes the soundness of our governance and administration. That's the Board of Governors, our president, our provost, all the way down to deans, department heads and chairs, and even down to your governance and how you operate. So those are things that they will be looking at. They want to make sure that we're adhering to our mission. And again, we are land grant R1 research intensive university. And so we are also given a land grant. Access is an important mission to all peoples in Colorado. And so they'll be looking at our admissions data and all those things to say, are you really doing those things that your mission says that you're supposed to be doing? Sustainability of finances. How are you managing your resources? Are they fiscally sound? Are they being spent in a good way? And do you have buffers for times of uncertainty like COVID to kind of get through it? And then are there sufficiency of resources? So the HLC has 10 guiding values. And these are the guiding values that I have over the next two slides that they actually use to determine if you meet the criteria. So the first one, and this is really, I think, the most important one, is they focus on student learning. Are students learning what we say we're teaching you? And so this is measured by assessment of student learning in your courses. We look at core curriculum. We're actually developing a plan for that assessment right now with our new assessment director. So student learning, focus on that is extremely important. And we have to demonstrate that we can show we are providing value added to students in their educational programs. Number two, education as a public purpose. And of course, as a land grant, our education as a public purpose is very important in terms of serving the people of Colorado, serving the students of Colorado, having access, open access. So they will evaluate if we meet that guiding principle. Education for diverse, technologically and globally connected world. Again, that's one of their values, and we will demonstrate that. Also, a culture of continuous improvement. And this relates to looking at where we were 9 years ago in our previous report, comparing that to the new report that we write and say, have we progressed? Have we gotten better? Are we always trying to improve? And so that's a really important guiding principle. And then evidence-based institutional learning and self-presentation. So we have to provide a lot of documentation, actual evidence, data, different projects to demonstrate that we're doing what we're saying. We just can't say it. We have to actually demonstrate it with evidence. And then on the next slide, integrity, transparency, and ethical behavior or practice is extremely important, and governance for the well-being of the institution, planning and management of resources to ensure institutional stability, mission-centered evaluation, and then the last guiding value is accreditation through peer review. So what they do is they have faculty and administrators from universities all in our region who sign up to be a peer reviewer. They go through a lot of training, and then they will send a team here. So 9 years ago, we had a team of 11 come to the campus for 2 days. So it's a big team, and you have people that are experts in finance, people that are experts in facilities, people that are experts in student learning, assessment of learning. They cover the gamut, and over those 2 days, they have all kinds of meetings they set up. It could be a meeting with, there will be a meeting with our executive leadership team. There'll be a meeting with faculty council. I'm 100% sure they'll be meeting with you as a group, and they will be asking a lot of questions to validate that what we have said in the report is what they're hearing direct hand and firsthand from all of you. So those peer reviewers, again, just come from institutions all over in our region, the Higher Learning Commission region. So in the report, what they do is they divide it into 5 criteria, and these are shown on this slide right here. And so the report will be written in this structure. We will start with the mission, addressing what our mission is, if we've updated it, how we actually validate it. We have criteria 2 on integrity, ethical, and responsible conduct. And then 3 and 4 to me are the really, really important, exciting ones. Teaching and learning. What are the quality and the resources and support that we provide? And this includes support for students. This could be tutoring programs. It could be mentoring programs. It could be learning assistance embedded within classes. And what is support we provide for faculty? So teaching learning assistants, our TILT program, which provides a lot of faculty development. So they look at all of that and they'll compare it again to where we were 9 years ago. And then with criterion 4, evaluation and improvement. And this is where they will be looking at a lot of data. So we need to show data on what our students have, how can we demonstrate our students have value added in their learning. And so we're actually in the process of figuring out how to assemble all of that right now. And then the last criteria is institutional effectiveness in the resources and planning. And that is, how is the budget linked to your strategic plan for the campus? How are budget resources allocated? Who's involved in those decisions? And are they supporting the mission and what you say you're going to be doing? So on the next slide, I just want to show you the structure of the oversight of our team. And the oversight is with our interim president, Rick Miranda, and interim provost, Jan Nerger. They will be the ones that will be reading the final report once we pull it together. The planning team includes myself, Laura Jensen, and Susan Matthews. I am actually a commissioner in the West Coast, Western schools and colleges. So I actually not only go and review universities, I actually sit on the commission that makes the final decision and judgment. So I've been engaged in this for quite a while. So I'm very knowledgeable about how the procedure runs, what they're looking for, how to kind of address it. And so that's why they've asked me to be part of this planning team. And then what we have, the entire leadership team will be the steering committee in terms of once we pull together different pieces. So the next slide shows our work groups. And these are groups that we have focused around different topics that are key topics that will be addressing different criteria. Some of them will be writing pieces of several criteria. Some will be focusing on one. But we have an inclusive excellence, which really builds across all of our criteria, led by our VP for Inclusive Excellence, Colleen Cipriani. The student success piece is really important, and this includes all of the initiatives that we've been doing for improving student retention and graduation rates and all of the areas around student success. And Ryan Barone is leading that initiative. Research and creative artistry. So we really talk about our research mission. And Krista Johnson from CVMBS, the College of Veterinary Medicine and Biomedical Sciences, is leading that team. Each of these teams make up anywhere from 6 to about 8 people. And so they're pretty large teams that try to represent different areas of campus. And I know they've been working to engage students on these teams. So I'm hoping that we do have student participation there. We have a team on teaching and curriculum. And right now that's led by the 2 co-directors of TILT, and that's Katie Little and Allison Penfield. And then one that I think is really near and dear to my heart is the assessment of student learning team. And this is the team that actually looks at how are we measuring student learning. And that is led by our new director of assessment, Stephanie Foster. And then operations and planning. And that's all the nuts and bolts of facilities and other operations. And it's actually being led by Scott Shrake, who's leading our strategic plan for the campus. So those are different work groups that are actually pulling together information in drafts right now. We're in the stage of collecting information, collecting data, collecting evidence. So that's where we are right now. And the last slide that I have actually shows the timeline of how we're going through this. And so you can see on the left here, spring of 22, which was last spring, we oriented our leadership. We gave presentations to the top leadership. We created a website. So we do have a website for reaccreditation where you can go onto it and we'll have all the documents uploaded there. And we began planning for campus engagement. This fall, we're really, we put the work teams together and we're going to the different employee councils. We have a meeting tomorrow, another one next week. We're going to ASCSU. We can check that box today. Tonight is the time to inform you. And we will be having various open fora where we'll be sharing out and giving the opportunity for input. The goal is to have drafts, hopefully by the end of this semester for each of the work groups. And then in the spring, the work teams will be kind of pulling all of it together. And we'll be giving the campus the opportunity to reflect on it and give feedback. So one of the things that we'll need to touch bases is looking at what mechanism we'll be providing for all of you to give some input and feedback. So that's going to be really important. We will finalize our draft argument by next summer. We need to submit it in July to the accrediting body, the Higher Learning Commission, and then they will be on campus September 18th and 19th. So you can see that's just a little under now, a year from now. So that's not very far away. And they'll be spending 2 days and you'll be hearing a lot more about it. So that's the overall process. And this is really tonight is the first chance just to share with you what we're doing, what's happening, make you aware of it, and then we'll be engaging with you more during this academic year. So
You can open it up to questions.
all right, be happy to open it up to questions if there's any questions. Yes.
So you said there was a website. Just for the record, do you know the URL for the website or how to get to the website?
I think if you just search accreditation, you'll find it. It pops up. But we were working on it out of the provost office. So you could go to the provost page and there should be a link from the provost page also. Thank you for asking that.
Of course, thank you.
And we really look forward to your opportunity for input. And I think the student experience is a really important component of this. And so your voice and your word, your input is going to be valuable. One of the things I will be talking to the leadership team on, and I think that we should spend some time with your leadership, is determining ways to have more engagement, to get a broader input from students. So I really look forward to that opportunity. Thank you again for the time on your agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, now we'll move into executive reports. Is there anyone from the executive branch that wishes to report?
Hey, y'all. Mine is not a report, more of a statement. I want to address what happened in this space on September 28th, 2020. I do not want to open wounds that are still healing from that night, but I want to address the pain that I caused. I am learning that intent and impact are two very different things. The impact that my words had in this space caused individuals not to have a voice. That was not my intent. I am truly sorry for this impact. My words hurt people. That is a fact. I'm not going to deny this. I am instead going to learn from my actions and work towards making this space feel safe for all voices and identities. I would love to meet with those that I have hurt and work towards moving past this together. But I also recognize that it is hard to sit one-on-one in a space with someone that has caused you harm. It is not the job of the communities that I have hurt to teach me. So instead, I am looking at trainings and other opportunities to learn and grow, as well as we'll be going to the Pride Safe Zone training that will be held on the 26th. I recognize the need to work with people that I have harmed. And as I said before, I would love to hold meetings. So I will be reaching out. However, I respect any decision to decline a meeting. Thank you for your time. Well, on a slightly different note, lots of new faces in here. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Grace Krangle. I am the Director of Marketing. This is my first time giving a report in the Senate space, so this might take, I promise it'll be less than 10 minutes, but it is a lot because my department does a lot of work. So first of all, the U+2 homecoming tie-dye event last Friday, for those of you that went, was super, super successful. We got a chance to talk to a lot of CSU students about U+2, as well as the Fort Collins community in general. And we got to promote our U+2 abolition project called Get Involved, Get It Solved. Shout out to Jorge, who is our Deputy Director of State and Local Policy, who put this project together. The two of us worked for hours and hours, and it was really successful. If you were there, there was just for 3 hours, super long line. So really successful. We're going to probably plan another one this semester, but definitely next semester. Some of you have been asking about the black ASCSU polos, the one that I'm wearing. I did order some more about a month ago. I think they should get here next week. So the front desk will send out an email when that is ready, and then you can just pick it up from the front desk if you don't already have yours. Coffee with the Courts is coming up. I've been working with Associate Justice Elena Truxall, and I have designed posters, placed that order with fast print. If you're able to, please stop by the ASCSU office on Friday, October 28th from 12 to 3 p.m. To obviously chat with the court, and then for some free hot chocolate and coffee. Similar note, the Halloween blood drive is coming up. The health department, I don't think Alex Silverheart is here, but he's fantastic. He's been working really, really hard on that. And we're working on marketing it. So we got some cute little like heart-shaped stress balls. We're going to market this through handouts, Instagram posts, and an ad in the Collegian. On that note, for those of you that don't know, the Collegian is our school newspaper, and ASCSU is automatically given a half page of ad space every week. So that's something that I've been doing every week, is just designing and submitting ads for different events, different projects. So we're currently full up until fall break, but if you're interested, we can literally advertise anything. So just let me know. That'll be the next possible week is December 8th. Okay, that'll be on a first come, first served basis. So just reach out, just email the marketing email. We're now working with the environmental affairs team for some infographic posters and then marketing materials in general for recycling at CSU. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is really, really important for my department. I reached out to Charlie, who is our director of diversity and inclusion. They aren't needing any help right now, but will likely lend a hand when it comes to World AIDS Day and Charlie's video project in general. For those of you that don't know, I also serve as a member on the executive board for Rocky Mountain Student Media. ASCSU, I think, funds like more than half of the money that they have. So it's really important that we have representatives on that board. So that's what I do. Jason and I do that. Oh, sorry, Secretary of State. Another big thing I wanted to talk about is I know that Instagram is a really, really big like avenue for marketing, and particularly giveaways. I love doing giveaways, boost tons of engagement. The only thing is that there are a lot of really annoying rules. A couple administrations ago, they were able to do giveaways that with like crew necks, water bottles, stuff like that. We can now only spend $10 per giveaway, which obviously not a lot of fun stuff can happen with $10. So just know I am aware that we need to use the Instagram more. I'm doing what I can, but there are a lot of really annoying rules to get around. But with that, I reached out to Ted to collaborate with local businesses in the area to do giveaways that way. So if you have any input there, just let me know. Alejandra, she's our Deputy Director of Multimedia. She's not here tonight, but I wanted to give her a shout out because she's been spending hours and hours working on the body project and cans around the oval. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to email her. More Senate related. Thank you all for being patient for your headshots. Alejandra and I, for some reason, switched off weeks getting sick. So we've had to move judicial headshots until I think it's next week. And then once we have all of the headshots, I'm going to send them over to Akil, who's super, super talented. So he's going to edit them. Then we're going to have it in the Google Drive for you all to download. Then it'll be up on the website. And if you didn't get your headshot this semester, we'll be taking them again next semester. Okay, yeah, that's all the kind of big stuff that we're working on right now. We are that busy literally all of the time. But if you have any questions, concerns, or recommendations, just let me know. I'm in the office most afternoons after 2 p.m. If I'm not, I'm probably just at home with my cat, but very easily accessible via email. So just send the marketing email a message. And note that if you want to submit an official marketing request, make sure that you're just sending that in writing to the marketing email. So even if you're just planning on working with Colin or Alejandra, make sure it goes to the marketing email. Pretty simple, because just mentioning something to us, it doesn't count because we need it kind of all in one place. So just a heads up. Okay, yeah, I think that's everything. I really want to kind of talk about how hard my department works, how hard cabinet works. We know that all of you work just as hard. We're very, very busy, but I also want to make it known that marketing isn't just for executive or judicial. If y'all have projects or events or anything that you want to market, I am, and my department is a resource to you. So please use it. Oh, and if you're confused about what we're doing, come to cabinet. It's an hour before Senate, so 5 p.m. The front desk also sends out weekly reports, so you can see literally everything that we're doing. But yeah, I think that's everything. I don't know if we have time for questions, but if anyone has questions, you can let me know. Yes, Ross.
Can you talk about how successful homecoming was?
Yes, I would love to. So we were Festival on the Oval. We had a couple tents. We did tie-dye, so we ordered like 400 white shirts with the logo for our project on it. People came to tie-dye literally, and then we also had a wheel that people were spinning to get free stuff. We got rid of like pretty much everything, and it was just a really cool opportunity to talk to the community. Faraz, thank you for helping, and thank you everyone else. We really, really needed the help. There were so many people, so thank you all for coming. That's kind of probably the most successful event I've ever seen ASCSU do in the time that I've been here, so it's something we definitely want to recreate on the plaza. Does that cover it? Yeah, super successful. So looking forward to doing it again. No other questions? All right, y'all. Thanks for your time. And don't hesitate to reach out. It's just the marketing email. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, Bruce.
All right, hello, Senate. I'll try to keep this short. So last night I attended City Hall. There were some discussions surrounding raising minimum wage, updating the housing code, and ranked choice voting being on the ballot this November. I also met with local leadership today, including council members and county leadership. Discussions surrounded how students could get more involved in local politics and some of the decisions that directly impact them. We recently hired a new director of academics. Congratulate Sabina Gebru for the position. I also, last Friday, we met up with the Utah State University student government and Claire Alder, their student body president. We went to lunch with them. Big thank you to Elizabeth for setting that up. I met with Provost Nerger on Monday. Some discussions surrounded the current state of Ramride and what its future will look like. Transcript issues and Rams Against Hunger. I'm working with Deputy Director Panidi, renewing the Groom program, the Groom program was a highly successful program done last semester, where students were transported to and from a round trip program to DIA. So we're looking at renewing that for the winter break. I'm going to have a meeting with President Miranda on Friday, along with Speaker DeSalvo and VP Sandoval. And then tomorrow I'll have a Colorado Student Government Coalition meeting. Let me know if you want anything discussed during either of those meetings. Let me know. Reach out to me on that email. This past Monday, I met up with Mari Strombaum, the director of housing and dining here at CSU. We discussed about dining hall, working conditions, Best Western update, and renovation updates for the dorms. And lastly, I will be working with the House of Obis co-presidents for the bill that recently passed to make sure that's done in an effective manner. Yeah, that is my report. Thank you all.
Thank you, President Long.
Howdy, everybody. The homecoming tailgate last weekend was a huge success. Thank you so much to everybody that volunteered. For anybody that doesn't know me, I'm Reed Vega, the new Director of Traditions and Programs. So if you need anything, don't hesitate to reach out. And there is another tailgate this Saturday, and I need volunteers from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. I'm going to send out a sign-up sheet, and I'd really appreciate it if I see you there. Thank you.
Thank you, Reed.
All right, hi everyone. I'm Evan Wilson, Director of Governmental Affairs. And what that is basically I work with other governments and just because we're a government, there's a lot of other governments in this state and in this country. I don't want to like kind of deal with all of them, which is very fun. And so first thing I want to bring up is raise your hand if you know what day of the Capitol is. But we're guessing about, okay, a little more like 10%. That's what I was expecting. So this is an event every year where in late January, early February, we take a bus down to Denver with a bunch of students. Some of them are part of ASCSU, some of them not a part of ASCSU. Any students interested, they go to the Denver Capitol. They get to see what the state government does. They might get to talk to some individuals. This helps people learn more about what the state government does. So they know more about what the state government's doing, how it works, and all that fun stuff. And so that is almost ready to start marketing. So I'll probably have the date when we'll be trying to do it and a backup date just in case there's a blizzard like last year. That'll be coming out next week or in 2 weeks. And it'll be more marketing. As well as President Long brought up, we attended City Council yesterday. And so two things I realized was one, unfortunately, there's a lot of people in this town that aren't the biggest fan of college students. They've only seen a few. They unfortunately assume all college students are like those few, which is very much not true. None of you are like what they made some comments and stereotypes about students. I've bet none of you are a part of that group. So one of my goals is to start working on things that will help not just students, but will help people in Fort Collins. So if you're all interested in like policies that like will affect city council, affect residents, and may affect students, please let me know. One of my new goals is to try to create stuff that'll help the city, including us and residents, just so they know like we are students, but also we're a part of Fort Collins and we're a part of their town. Another thing I want to work on is, I took fairness. The other thing is city council is every other Tuesday, the first week of Tuesday, the third week of Tuesday. Another thing I'm people do is if you attend a meeting and while you attend a meeting, maybe introduce yourself, just so also people know that like we're students, we have a voice on what's happening, and that'll just help. So if you're at all interested in working on stuff that'll help residents in Fort Collins or want to attend city council, please let me know. My email is ASCSU_government_affairs. And I'm in the office all the time, so you can easily find a way to reach me. Happily talk to you about either one of those. So thank you for your time. Have a great fun Senate session.
Thank you, Evan.
Woo, Evan!
All right, anyone else from the executive branch? All right, Judicial Chief Justice Zacharias.
How are y'all doing tonight? Oh, how are y'all doing tonight?
Good.
Perfect. That was a little bit lame, but we'll work on it in the future. The main announcement that the Supreme Court has is we have Coffee with the Courts October 28th. It's a Friday before Halloween. That'll be from 12 to 3. Please stop by. It's just a chance for us to get to talk to all of y'all and get to see what you all are working on in your projects. If there's any way that we can help each other accomplish our goals. And just to get to know y'all, I get really bored and lonely in the office, so please stop by. Beyond that, I just want to open up questions to any questions you guys have any questions y'all have on opinion 5201 that we delivered last week.
I have an accessibility question. Is there any way you could send it in the weekly email and then come back for questions and have to read already?
My apologies. I thought it was sent in the weekly email, but I will definitely make sure that it is sent this next weekly email.
Thank you. I could be wrong.
My apologies on that. I must have had some miscommunication somewhere with the front desk, but that would definitely be within the next weekly email for sure. Other than that, I see no questions. Well, I hope all of you have a great night tonight and that we get the fight song on the agenda again.
Yeah.
No, I don't know about
Yeah, just to kind of reiterate what Director Welch was talking about with the city council meetings. From what I heard, there was a lady there who was angry and saying that college students were throwing block parties. I've been here for 2 years. I've never seen a block party. So the lady must be holding out on us. But if you see one, let me know. I kind of joke like maybe she's just angry she wasn't invited. I don't know. All right. Oh, beer parties. Okay. Beer parties. All right. We'll move into the consent agenda. Is there any dissent to the agenda? Chair Andy.
I would like to talk about that.
Mr. Speaker, I have a motion.
Okay, Senator Hill.
A motion to approve the consent agenda. Mr. Speaker, I have a point of information.
Okay.
So based on what I understand, you need to have it unanimous, correct, to approve the consent agenda. But per discussions I've had, there's nothing that is stated in the Constitution or bylaws about what to do if it's not unanimous. So if you want to move, and I've heard that if you want to put some motion on something, it has to be a plurality vote if it's not in the Constitution or in the bylaws. Am I correct?
And from my understanding, do you want to amend your motion to open up discussion and debate about it?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there
3 minutes? Oh. I motion to move, actually will amend my motion to go 30 minutes discussion and debate on this particular.
Okay. There's been an amendment to the motion to open up 30 minutes of discussion and debate on the consent agenda. Is there a second to that? Okay, I'll do this by a voice vote. All those in favor of doing what I just said, because it's a mouthful, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, abstentions. Okay, this passes unanimously. All right, so we'll open up discussion debate, starting with the first raised placard. Sherry.
Okay, so Torrenter, we talked about this earlier. Am I supposed to do an overall, here's what's happening, or are you okay?
Yes, so just a bit of explanation on what the discussion would be about. Our chair, AP, and I were talking about how there's kind of two options to go with. I believe one is to either approve the minutes, or by discussing it further, it would be with the end goal of doing a revote. Is that correct? So that's just the end goal for everyone's consideration. So any discussion about it would be more hinged around the pros and cons of doing a revote of the SFRB board members.
Cool. Okay, now I reclaim my time. We passed the minutes to ensure that what we did the previous week was accurate. It's twofold. One is so we can make sure what we did was accurate, and the other is to make sure that the minutes themselves are accurate. Obviously, the minutes themselves are accurate to what happened, but we did not follow our procedure. This is similar to how at the end of the year, we vote to make sure that SFRB has followed their rules. The only difference is that in Senate, it's every week rather than with SFRB, it's at the end of the year, because Senate is way more likely to mess up.
Anybody else? Cool. Senator Correa.
Part of information. Are we going to be, so since there has already been dissent, are we going to be voting after this on should we approve the consent agenda or not? Is that what we're going to do?
Right.
Okay, so then, based on that, I would recommend folks inside the Senate to approve the consent agenda. Mainly one, if we don't do that, I'm afraid we'll have to do the entire process of ratification again. Something that would subject this very body to the same things that happened that very Senate session. I do not want that to happen again. Number two, I do believe we need to focus on important business rather than sitting on what happened in the past. I'm not going to say what happened was right or what happened was wrong. All I'm going to say is that we need to move forward, and this is not the best way to do that. Members in SFRB have already been ratified. If we do dissent to that and we say no to the minutes, to be honest, there's no set procedure, so I don't know how it's going to go. It's going to result in more confusion and chaos. But if we do go forward and accept it, there is no place for that chaos. Second thing, there are provisions within our constitution. If any member is problematic within SFRB, there is a provision to take them off SFRB. So should, I know the main discussion is on one or two people, but should they be problematic, we have a means of taking them off SFRB. Let us give them a chance. Let us see what they do. If they do end up doing problematic stuff, fine, let's take them off. But if not, let them be there. Our goal is to represent diverse intentions and diverse voices, different opinions and different voices. And I think that is what we should do. That is why I would recommend everybody within this chamber to approve the consent agenda. Thank you, and I yield, Mr. Speaker.
Point of information, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
So since it's been dissented to approve it, do we use a plurality vote, or will be what kind of vote will be using to if we were to wanting to motion to approve the consent agenda?
It would be a plurality. If there's nothing in it in the Constitution saying otherwise, the default is plurality.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield with my point of information.
Thank you. Associate Senator Torres Doxy.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Ben Torres-Doxy. I use the he, him, hers pronouns. And I guess just a point, the last time there was a procedural mishap in regards to how votes were counted was last March or February, and we rectified that. But I mean, I don't know if I can see both sides on this argument, but that's just kind of my view. So I think the precedent is when there's a procedural mistake, Senate has fixed it, at least in the last two cases of how voting went. So yeah, I yield.
Thank you, Senator Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would agree with my previous colleague that if it was a procedural mistake, we should rectify it. However, I do not believe that what happened was a procedural mistake. If you look at the court opinion very closely, it states that Speaker Nick DeSalvo did not do the procedure correctly, and that that may, or according to the court opinion, that is true, and it must go to the vote of the Senate. However, I will argue that the Senate does, I will once again argue the Senate does have the option to overrule the Speaker. So by us not overruling the Speaker, it was the Senate's decision to not, it was the Senate's decision in the end to not, since that is a procedural thing. So by us not motioning to overrule the Speaker, Senate has granted, that procedure was correct, that Senate ultimately made that decision. So therefore, I encourage the Senate to approve this consent agenda so we do not have to repeat these, the whole voting process of SFRB. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield.
I didn't know when you were stopping. That wasn't like, okay, get it along, Senator Hill. That was, do you yield or not? Okay. Senator Ayala.
Hi, yeah. So last week, or not last week, sorry, on the September 28th, a piece of procedure that wasn't followed that I actually found in the recording is that so Senator Ritter had made a motion that we never voted on.
Senator Ritter's original motion to remove the two off the slate was never entertained. It got covered up by a different motion to just bring them inside and have discussion. And I guess it wasn't brought up. It wasn't said in the opinion, but there was a piece of our procedures that was not followed. So agreeing with Senator, I don't remember Ben's last name. There you go. Yes. Agreeing with him, there was a piece of our procedure that was not followed. And so I would ask that we do not approve these minutes in order for us to fix that procedure. Thank you. I yield.
You, Chair Trout.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just wanted to clarify a couple things. Last week, the Chief Justice said the court left it up to the Senate to say if the vote was inaccurate. The opinion, as it was read last week, said, quote, that the court decided that the Senate bylaw 3F was not properly utilized by the Speaker of the Senate. As previously stated, the default of Senate bylaw 3F is not a secret ballot vote. Rather, the clause offers the other prescribed possibilities at the discretion of the body, end quote. That's very specific that our procedures were not followed correctly by the Speaker of the Senate, and the vote was not properly utilized, and a unilateral decision was made, especially when the possibility of other motions is shut down from the language that is used, as mentioned before. It is open to our interpretation whether we believe that the vote wasn't valid, and it should be blatantly obvious to anyone that was paying attention. In regards to the comment of the Senate could overrule him, him being Speaker, the role of the Speaker is to facilitate an impartial conversation while ensuring that the members of the Senate are fully aware of their options. When that clearly doesn't happen and when decisions are made unilaterally, especially when the majority of the members in the space are brand new, it leads to an inability to be held accountable. Brand new members have no idea of the possibility to overrule the Speaker, let alone haven't yet built up the confidence to make that confrontational motion and be able to ensure it is executed correctly. It was also worth noting that the only members that are guaranteed to know of the possibility to overrule the Speaker were either out of the room or in agreement with the Speaker, and therefore would not make that motion. Newness to our space, while bringing an amazing perspective, can make it difficult to hold individuals of power accountable. This vote is holding those individuals as well as the space as a whole accountable. I yield, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Ritter.
Hi, all. I'm Senator Ritter, she, her, hers. Yeah, so I would just like to echo what Associate Senator Torres Doxy had mentioned, where Senator Morgan and I's votes weren't accounted for as we were harassed out of the space, and we felt an unsafe space to come back in here. And so since we weren't able to come back for the votes because of that reason, our votes weren't accounted for. And so I feel like it was a procedural mistake in terms of that. And as well as my motion was not, was dismissed basically with another motion, it was kind of covered up. And so it was never resolved that night. So yeah, there was a couple of mistakes there that night. And so I definitely think we should not approve the consent agenda. I yield. Thanks.
Thank you, Senator Gabru.
Hello, I'm Senator Gabru. She, her, hers. I wanted to address what Senator Hill had said about not approving or going ahead and approving the minutes because of what had been said in the Supreme Court decision about how we could have still overruled the Speaker. However, I do want to remind you that one of the reasons we do not want to approve the minutes is because we, even at that time, were not aware of the definition of abstention. And so that kind of goes to show on how uninformed a lot of people in Senate were and made an uninformed decision. I think that it's fair to say that if people were not aware of what abstentions are, then of course they're not going to be aware that they are able to overturn the decision of the Speaker. So I think that's one thing I wanted to point out. And in addition to everyone else who wants to go ahead and approve the minutes, I think we should not approve the minutes because the concerns that were brought up that night are still valid. The harm that was caused by Stephen Leahy still has not been rectified. We have not heard an apology since then from Stephen Leahy.
I feel that there has not been enough done to show that this person cares about the harm that they have caused that night. And there's no telling what harm they might cause in the future. Senator Rick, I do want to acknowledge what you said earlier, that we should give people a chance. And I hear what you're saying. I think we can give people a chance if they are showing sorrow for their mistakes, which I personally have not seen. And I think all of us have not seen. And that's something else I wanted to point out. I think that by going ahead and approving the minutes, you are continuing to invalidate the voices of the people who were harmed that night. I yield.
Thank you, Officer Bukhari.
Kind of go off what Sabina or Senator Geber just said. I would appreciate if we didn't approve the minutes, just so we can go back and have a vote that would have everybody's, I guess, conscious decision. I feel like most of the new people in the space are more comfortable with the rules now. I mean, who here filled out the vocab sheet I just passed out? A little crossword. You guys filled out? Did that help a little? And then you also have like instructions on here. So you have a voice, so please use it. So I would appreciate if we went through and did that again. Just give people who felt as though they were silent and were silenced have a chance to speak again. But that's my take. And I'm glad we're getting more stuff done and people can feel more comfortable in this space. So let's keep moving on that track and having a positive impact overall. So thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you, Senator Reese.
Okay, so I will say I was the one, let's see, apologies, Senate. So I'm gonna start with a point of clarification, I guess. Who was Senator Gabru, if they're comfortable with sharing this information, who was unaware of what an abstention was? And then they do not have to share this information if they don't want to. I'm just kind of confused about that.
I will not be sharing names. That is up to the people who want to share. I was not one of those people, but there was the majority of the people who had abstained that night did not realize that abstention meant that their vote would not be counted. They had intended to vote no. And had they voted no, then Stephen Leahy would have not been voted into SFRB. I yield.
Okay. So then if we don't approve if you don't approve these minutes, then the members of SFRB will have to come back in here and have to ratify them again. Is that correct, Mr. Speaker?
That's correct. The situation that was referred to last year was when the vote of confidence for the Speaker of the Senate procedure wasn't necessarily followed there. And so all the candidates had to come back, represent, and then we just did the whole process again. So it had to be the same thing.
Okay, thank you.
And then a point of clarification, the SFRB members have been notified of the potential of this. So it's not like we come to them tomorrow or later tonight, like, oh, by the way, they have been informed that this could be a possibility. And they all have that planned out in their timeline. So I want senators to be aware of that.
Sorry, I also have a point of info. I think that the majority of the people who would prefer to revote on this are okay if the Senate wants to just redo the vote and not necessarily have to bring everyone back in, because we recognize that that's a lot. We just want to make sure that the vote gets redone.
Okay, thank you. I guess that kind of clarifies the following question I had of like, I just wouldn't understand how, I understand Stephen Lathien and I can't remember who the other individual was, doesn't the point of contention that they caused some harm, both mentally and otherwise to other individuals in this space. I was just wondering how that I guess would change if we underwent questioning again, but I guess Chair Hathi, if we would just go direct to a vote, is that what the majority of the people who would, again, I'm trying to ask pointed questions without being aggressive or timid at all. Sorry.
We are okay with whichever version of that the Senate would prefer. We kind of think that it's probably more likely that the Senate just reholds the vote rather than bring them back in. But really, whatever's going to get it approved, well, fail.
Okay, thank you. And then final point, I do not see the procedural error that is being discussed, and I believe that would be further clarified if we had the Supreme Court decision in front of us. I know Chair Trout had a quote, and I don't know if that's from the actual opinion or if it's one from Marcus said, but I don't have the opinion in front of me, and I doubt many others do. So, and then that brings up, well, then we need it for next week, but then next week would literally be a month from when this is done, and we have far more important things to do in the Senate than get rid of two individuals who I understand have caused problems, but as Senator Correa said, there's a process to remove them if harm is continued. And I understand Senator Rue that an apology was not given, but I believe the confusion around that surrounding that was Senator Laffey was not aware of the damage that he caused, and so I find it hard to understand how someone could apologize for damage that they do not perceive they have, do not understand they've done. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield.
Senator Laffey.
Okay, first of all, it's Laffey, Laffey. Second of all, I have a few things to say. First of all, saying that people not in this space not knowing basic parliamentary procedure is on this space is completely ludicrous. It is on you and it is on your college and it's on the people who elect you to be in this space that you know parliamentary procedure. So trying to invalidate a vote because you didn't know parliamentary procedure is not what we're here to do. Secondly, people have had 3 weeks to talk about this motion. Why are just tonight we're hearing of new things like this motion was overlooked that someone made, or at some point we need to stop reviewing this and we need to move on. Third point, nowhere in the United States of America can you show up to a meeting without actual evidence. What this space did 3 weeks ago was show up to a meeting where someone said, Stephen Laffey made a motion. Then it progressed to Stephen Laffey talked to a few people. Then no one even had anything to say about that. And it progressed to, and I quote, he had bad energy. Nowhere in the United States of America does he had bad energy constitute a reason to dismiss anybody from anything at all. So, in my opinion, the reasons set forth by other members of this body to dismiss this vote are completely ludicrous, and this vote should stand as it was. Mr. Speaker, I yield.
Senator Taylor.
I would just like to say that kind of touching on a lot of things that have been said, but you cannot just undo a vote because you don't like what happened and you don't, maybe you say that you didn't know what was happening at the time. We made this vote and we consciously made this vote. In this space, you must know the functions of the Senate and you must know what things like I abstain mean. So undoing a vote because you don't like the outcome is completely asinine. You have to know what you mean when you say something in the Senate. And if you intend to vote no, you vote no. If you intend to abstain, you abstain. Also on just voting on the candidates and not having them come back in, I think that we should have all of the candidates come back in so that we can do a second section of Q&A if this does fail. And we should explain to them that they've been caught up in the politics of the Senate and not just do a simple vote again. And also, I think that we should accept these minutes because we as a Senate need to be looking ahead of us and not back. We need to find common goals that we have and achieve that because we serve the student body and not just the Senate. Thank you, I yield.
Okay, so we have 2 more speakers on the primary speaker list and then 3 more speakers on the secondary speakers list and like a minute and a half left on that 30-minute running clock.
No.
Yeah.
9 minutes.
9 minutes left, you were counting?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we kind of just guesstimated like where we were at with the 30. Okay, so we had that. Okay, we should be fine. Next on the speakers list is Associate Senator Aslan.
Hi, real quick, my name is pronounced Aslan with a weird W sound in the last part of the name. Sorry, I've been meaning to correct you and I keep forgetting.
You're good, I'll make it now.
Thank you. I'm gonna circle back. We had a very earlier on question about, is this more important than focusing on getting other things done? And it's not more important than anything, it is equally important. But it is very important that we spend time being intentional in ensuring we are representing our constituency from every single college and every single SDPS office and every other place within this room that is being represented. Please keep in mind for senators and associate senators of colleges that your colleges in and of themselves are are filled with very diverse populations. And you have to remember to take them into account as well, not just the people who look, sound, and believe as you do. The vote is extremely important to ensure that we are representing these constituents. And if it wasn't, and this space gets very hostile and is very hard for someone to be motivated enough to come in here and speak. And we've seen people come in here and speak about the harm that was created on this day of September 28th. I can't remember dates. Who came into this hostile space to express their opinion and concerns to harm created to their students by our space. We need to make sure that we rectify the harm we have created and be actively conscious of what our voices and what we say here has an impact on those people who aren't in this space at all. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield.
Thank you. And for anyone else in the chamber, if I'm saying your name incorrectly, please let me know. Because if I'm saying it incorrectly, other senators might be saying it incorrectly as well. So next we'll move on to Senator Weaver.
How's it going? Stephen Laffey has been attacked multiple times and there has been no specifics brought to the table. People have said he's created harm and brought bad energy. Does anybody have a specific example of something he said or did that caused harm? I yield. Oh, I'm done talking, sorry.
Okay, well, you yield, reclaim your time for a second and yield to me because.
I yield to you, Charity.
Cool. Okay, so if you want an example, I will give an example and I'm going to try and say it in the. Actually, do you want to take it instead? You can probably say it better than I did. I can.
So okay, so I'm kind of tired of the need for context to keep being added, but since we're here, I guess I'll just do it. Stephen, me and Stephen and I had discussions last year. He was concerned about the process of how SDPS folks were appointed. So essentially, I had brought multiple reasons why SDPS folks cannot be appointed by let me back up. Cannot be appointed in the way that college councils are. So in college councils are voted upon. And I had give Stephen multiple examples, at least, and at the time I was representing APAC, so I spoke for APAC. So in APAC, directors ask for feedback, and we even held interviews for our senators, so student staff and students who were concerned about or wanted to voice their opinion or ask any questions to our senators could be appointed. He was worried that it was an undemocratic process. We went in circles and circles and circles and circles and circles, and as far as I've heard, he did go to SDPS offices and ask questions referring to how folks were appointed to people who might have not known what ASCSU was or any of the procedures within ASCSU. Yeah. I yield back if that kind of answers your question.
So once again, is there a specific example of something they did? or that he said that offended somebody or caused harm?
I wasn't in the SDPS offices at the time he was up there. But I mean, I could see how going up to students in the SDPS offices and asking questions that they might not know anything about, specifically how senators are appointed, could make folks seem uncomfortable. I could see it. But I mean, there were times that he did go to the SDPS offices and ask folks questions. I wasn't there. So, I mean, I don't know how to answer this question.
So he asked questions. Is that the accusation being made against him?
I can give a little bit. So I know at least for NAC, he went in, and again, I wasn't there, but just asking them about the process and if they think it's democratic and if they think it's right. But it's important to understand that these SDPS offices are supposed to be safe spaces for Native American students where they can feel welcome in their identity and feel safe. They shouldn't be harassed with these different questions that don't clarify to them. And that's the reason why they're NAC senators for those issues. So again, and then, we came in and all the students said that they felt unsafe. Why is this person coming here and asking questions? We're supposed to be a study space, a support space. So again, going back to intent versus harm. Again, I don't think it was ever stated that this individual had harm or intent to do harm, but harm was done and that can be undone. And with this, is there evidence? We're not going to interview students and ask them, hey, how were you harmed? We're not going to bring up that trauma again. So no, we don't have physical evidence, but the harm is already done.
I would like to make a quick point of order. We are discussing specifically re-voting on SFRB members. We are not specifically talking about specific members. I would like to bring this conversation back to that, than specifics of candidates.
Senator Weaver, do you yield completely? Okay.
I yield.
And then
One.
how much?
1 minute.
There's like 1 minute left. We have two options if we want to extend it. There's one more person left on the primary speakers list and then.
Motion to exhaust the speakers list.
Okay. Is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of exhausting the speakers list, all speakers lists, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay, this passes. There is someone on Zoom, Senator Arias.
Am I allowed to speak? Sorry. Can you hear me all? Hello. I can't tell if y'all can hear me or not.
Yeah.
Can I get a yes if y'all can hear me? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there like a volume button you have on the computer itself?
No, it's good.
Oh, it's all the way up. The slightest idea.
Last time it was just the same.
Hello. Hello, hello.
Mr. Speaker, may I motion for a 5-minute recess?
I second that, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. All those in favor of a 5-minute recess until we figure the technology out, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? All right. See you at 7:57.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I've never really used the app before. So.
No, the settings are the same like last week, and it worked pretty well last week.
So.
So,
Yeah. So this isn't making sense. So unless we, because I know Jason came in earlier and said this might be the speaker that might have to work, and he gave us this one, but I don't know.
Is there like a jack for like an audio jack for the owl itself?
I do not see where.
Which one are we using? This one or the?
This one. So we could.
My emotional support person. I know. Oh, you can
Well, after the exhaust speakers, right?
Yeah, we're voting on the agenda.
I think we see there.
The minutes.
And then I don't know if Kim told you, but the court's leaving at 8 or after the vote of this. So you'll have to do the ratification of director of academics.
Okay, yeah.
Are you good with that?
Yeah.
Thanks, Nick.
Yep.
Which one is the one that turned on? This one?
Senator Arias, would you mind speaking?
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, hold off. We're at recess right now, so hold off, and then we'll get to you. Right.
Sounds good, thank you. Appreciate it.
Remind me what college or office are you in?
I'm for El Centro, and also it's Senator Lozoya, please, Lozoya.
Oh, okay, because it says it might just be a different name. Okay,
Yeah,
I'll change.
it might just be the way I joined, my bad.
okay, that's okay.
I'm gonna put this at the front desk.
Thank you. Oh, my bones hurt.
Yeah, so after the secondary speakers, they'll get to speak once.
Guys, sorry, point of information on the crossword, down 3 is silent vote.
Oh.
Just to clarify.
Silent vote.
I copied it from the green and gold book, I'm sorry. Wait, was it?
I thought it was voice vote.
Wait. I yield to Doyle. You have an answer key on you. 3 down.
But
Senator
can we
Doyle
get
is
3
lost.
down and 5 down?
Secret ballot and voice voting.
See, I thought it was voice vote.
See, why is there an R there?
I'm sorry, I copied pasted. I was in a rush.
Make it make sense. Okay, hold on. Wait, but that's not right because 11 across is
it?
Peace off. Yeah. Yes, because it is a committee that oversees a budget of 150,000. That's it.
Oh yeah.
All right.
So how is it? So how is it
We
secret
can work
vote?
out the details of the crossword later.
If you wait for my report later, I'll have some office hours I'm gonna list, so you can come visit me. If you'd like to argue about the crossword, I'm sorry. But take care.
All right, so I guess the Zoom name was different. It's Senator Lozoya. So we got it figured out. Senator Lozoya, you have the floor.
All right, 1 second. I do apologize. Okay. I do have a lot to. Can I be heard? Can anyone hear me? Everyone hear me? Yeah. Okay. Awesome. I do have a lot to say. I hope that it doesn't come across as rude. I did take a lot of notes and stuff like that, and I do have a lot to say. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with the first thing. First, I want to mention that someone in the space mentioned that it is the responsibility of the people in Senate to know their bylaws, know the procedure, etc. And firstly, I want to ask how many of the senators here came into this space with full knowledge of what Senate was supposed to be? That's rhetorical. Moreover, personal privilege should be acknowledged when it comes to the fact that people in minority groups, largely the groups that SDPS offices represent, weren't allowed in college, let alone Senate spaces. So therefore, it becomes a lot more harder for us to learn these kind of bylaws when we weren't even expected to be in these positions in the first place. I want to answer a couple of other questions that other senators posed. Firstly, someone said that, this principle is coming from claiming that somebody had bad energy. I do want to say that he didn't have bad energy. He's purposely neglected the principles of diversity and inclusion in this space. He raised his voice and personally afflicted your fellow senators. Furthermore, he yelled when you asked for specific actions. He did yell at senators without apologizing for his actions. And I do apologize if the next part that I say comes off as a little bit rude. But you claim this individual is competent at his job, and yet he fails to realize how his actions affect others. How can we expect this individual to do their job and serve the people of the CSU community if they can't even be conscious of how their actions impact others? The last thing that I'm going to say is that this vote isn't about feelings being hurt. This vote isn't about disdain towards Stephen. It's about SDPS offices feeling overlooked and ignored in this space. It's about ensuring that the voices of SDPS offices can be heard in this space. It has been said over and over that this space wants to accomplish more. We are not going to accomplish anything if the animosity in this space is not resolved. I don't think that it is much to ask that we can come to a consensus, that we can ask for a little bit of leeway, maybe a middle ground, that at least one member can be revisited throughout all of this. And that is all I have to say. Thank you.
You, Senator, do you yield?
Yeah.
Oh, my apologies. Yes, I yield. Thank you.
I assume so, but yeah. Okay, now we'll move on to the secondary speakers list. Senator Correa.
All right, hello, Senate. Every single time I show up to Senate, I think I should write up a speech or something. Whenever I speak up, I keep forgetting to do so, but I promise next Senate session I will write a speech. Just that it sounds good, even though my points don't make any sense. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the judicial opinion that was brought up regarding discretion of the body. And I'm going to not keep it based on right and wrong. A lot of folks have brought up things about procedure, so I'm going to strictly speak on that. With procedure, it's clearly mentioned. I know folks have said that they didn't know it, but I'm going to keep that aside for now. I'll bring it up later. With procedure, specifically in Rule 2C, we have a provision to overrule the speaker. Now that wasn't done. Now, while the court opinion did say it's at the discretion of the body did not decide to act on it, and hence they made their decision to go by what was decided by the speaker. We also, in Bill 5201, Senate job descriptions that the Senate passed, it clearly states that facilitating conversation, handling how Senate works is up to the discretion of the speaker. If you don't believe me, Bill 5201, you can check it out. That is why procedure-wise, there was nothing that was wrong. I'm not speaking if it was right or wrong morally. Procedurally, there was nothing wrong. Now, to spice things up, we keep talking about voices not being represented. Yet when one senator over here, just a couple of moments ago, was trying to make a point, some people across the aisle were laughing, which is kind of ironic when you talk about not trying to stop people from talking, making sure they're heard and their concerns are heard and addressed. Yet when somebody talks against you, it's all about lol. Just because I don't agree with you, I'm going to laugh and show my dissent. What happened to including their voices? Please keep please just keep the politics aside. For once, let's keep the politics aside. It's getting absurd at this point. Things like this have been happening since last year. Let's focus on doing what's right. As I've already mentioned, there is a provision to remove a particular person should they do something wrong. We have it in the Constitution. Just because you don't like what there have been multiple instances where things haven't happened the way I wanted it to happen. There have been multiple instances where I've been attacked within this space. I wish, someone said that maybe I should have done the same thing, just to send it to the minutes the next time. But I don't do that because I want the space to function effectively, efficiently. And I think everybody within here should do that. And once again, I would like to reiterate and say we should pass the consent agenda. And I yield with that, Mr. Speaker.
I would like to make a point of personal privilege. I have autism, and so I laugh in inappropriate moments as a stress reaction. So I would like folks on the other side to keep that in mind before they are talking about me not taking people seriously.
Senator Gerber.
We are having interesting discussions, yeah? Okay, so I wanted to first address Senator Lackey. I think you made a lot of valid points. I think what you said about we need to move on, you have a very valid point. It's been, I think, 4 or 5 weeks since what took place happened. Correct. However, I do think moving on requires some sort of resolution on both parties, and clearly it looks like one party feels that resolution has not been reached. So I think maybe that's something we could discuss outside of the Senate space to come to more of a resolution. I think one of the issues I'm seeing right now is, or feeling right now, is that there's people in the Senate space who have been on the speakers list for this past discussion who have brought up points that are a little problematic to me personally. For example, the question about what are specific examples of harm that have been caused. I think sometimes you can't really quantify harm. You can't put a label on it. You can't really have examples for what it looks like. Unfortunately, sometimes it's just a feeling, and sometimes it's invisible to people who don't identify with that harm. So I do want to also point that out, that there are people in this room with privilege who are unable to see that harm just because they have the privilege of not identifying with it. That's something I do want to point out. The second thing is, we were talking about procedural things, Senator Lackey, about how we should come into this space and we should be aware of what we're supposed to do as senators. And you're correct, I think in theory, most definitely. But however, you could see that it wasn't just senators who were uneducated. Speaker of the Senate also came into the space and made mistakes. I think everybody made mistakes that night. And so when you look at performance, I don't think it's the performance here that matters, because even if we had all came into the space and we all knew exactly what to do and exactly how to vote and exactly how to handle procedure, that still doesn't make up for the fact that a candidate came into the space and did and said some hurtful things. And so I think that there still is something to be addressed. And I think the reason we want to have candidates come back and be revoted or come back and have another questioning period, I think those points are still valid, maybe if not to you, they're still valid to other people, and I think you should respect them. I yield.
Senator Ayala.
I'm just gonna kind of do it again, just didn't go over a little bit of stuff I've been hearing throughout this discussion. I heard like, so with the, with the Senate being able to call, I guess, like to ask for resignation. So when it comes to the SFRB board, we have, okay, in section 906, the student review board, number 4, Senate shall have the ability to call for legislative resignation of any student review board member. So we can call for the resignation, but that wouldn't mean they would just, hop off. That's not going to automatically just be like, oh, we are asking you to step down because of course you did some things that offended and hurt other people, but that doesn't automatically kind of say that they will opt down. We would have to, of course, go through procedures and stuff. And this is also what we're doing right now. This is a procedure of us trying to get that vote redone. So if anything, we are going through one procedure, and if we need to go through another procedure, we will probably go through another procedure. As well as, the lack of knowledge of senators. For me personally, that was my second Senate meeting. The 928 Senate meeting was my second Senate meeting sitting in this space. And back in high school, we did use Robert's Rules of Order. So I knew how to do Robert's Rules of Order, but there's so much in the bylaws and there's so much in the Constitution that you can't just expect any new senator to know everything that they're doing. And as well as in the Speaker of the Senate's job description, it is the Speaker of the Senate's job to inform the Senate and to educate the Senate and teach the Senate on the rules and the bylaws and the Constitution. So automatically assuming that anyone who walks into the space automatically knows how we run things is a little out of proportion. So as well as the procedural error that was talked about that I said earlier with a motion being covered up, that was completely written out in the opinion review form, which I know many people in this Senate had not read because of course it's not sent out. And we don't even have the kind of what Chief Justice told us. We don't even have those 2 points that he told us that we are referring to during the Senate meeting. But I know in the opinion review form, we did talk about how Senator Ritter's motion was covered up and it was not entertained at all. If you need minutes, we have a whole chart of minutes written down. You can go back to the Senate meeting because of course, all of them are live and watch and see how we did not follow procedure that during that vote. And I have a little bit more evidence for everyone who's asking for some evidence. I don't know, I don't remember if they wanted me to say their name or not. So right now I'm just gonna keep it neutral. Someone has shared to me that Stephen Laffey shook the hands of multiple people when he met with them as a senator and refused to shake this person's hand when they told him they were a senator of Pride. They also wouldn't make eye contact with them, along other things that he did with the straight peers in his space. He also never talked to the Pride Center when he talked to other senators, asking about how SDPS senators were ratified, and also ignored the queer students. And so at least for the Pride senators, this is something that touches home for them because of course, Stephen Laffey directly affected their space. And the last statement I want to say is that if everything that has been said, if you don't have enough evidence and you don't think you can make an informed decision, then I say everyone who was here, everyone who has watched the 928 Senate meeting, I would say make your decision off of what you saw there. If you don't want to pull off of historic events or old events, then go off of what you were in the Senate for. Go off of what you saw in front of you, all the things that were said and the actions that were displayed. And I yield. Thank you.
Chair Athy.
Point of information, how many more people are on the secondary speakers list?
After Chair Athy, one more.
I cannot possibly say this as well as Senator Lozoya. This request for a revote isn't solely because we don't like Stephen Laffey. There are how many other members that are also up for potential fail if the revote fails, including 2 members that are highly arguing for this. We aren't undoing the vote because we don't like the outcome. To be clear, we don't like the outcome, but that is why we waited so long so that we can ensure that the court believed that there was an error. We wanted to ensure that this was not emotionally based. We are ensuring that we are representing our space intentionally. I think it's interesting that we mentioned how there are new people and who don't know the space every single time, right up until it matters to the marginalized identities. We need to take into account that every single one of us has been new, and every single one of us has had to learn and to say that this one time I have lost my place. Let me start that sentence over. We need to take into account that every single one of us has been new, and every single one of us has had to learn and to say that this one time is just 2 bad people. That sentence doesn't make sense. I'm gonna skip it. Procedure was fully not followed, which is what that court opinion states. It does not state that the vote was wrong because Chief Justice Zacharias said that the court did not want to rule on the validity of the vote, but they specifically stated that the speaker did not properly utilize the bylaws. It is imperative that we fail these minutes and redo this vote. Other than that, I yield to redundancy of Lozoya. As a side note, it is my job as a member of the legislative cabinet to name that calling members of the space ludicrous is an ad hominem attack. The bylaws state ad hominem statements that threaten the physical, psychological, or mental well-being of members, and calling that is an ad hominem attack. And calling members of the space names is in fact a first strike of an ad hominem attack. I yield.
Point of information, saying that ideas are ludicrous is not attacking a person.
Point of information, Senator Laffey, you said both the ideas were ludicrous and that we are ludicrous when you look across at us. I yield.
Point of information, I did not say that any of you were ludicrous.
Senator Laffey, you're last on the speakers list.
You know, a lot has been said over the past little under an hour on a lot of different sides. I just like to reiterate what we started this discussion with, that the judicial team, which they issued a report that said that it was our job to correct this mistake, and we didn't do that. I wasn't even in this room, but it's still part of every single person who's here. But no one said that, and it doesn't matter. We can't keep shifting the blame around to Speaker DeSalvo, to different members. The fact is that when you enter the space, it's, like I said before, not the space's job to educate you on parliamentary procedure. We should all know how the space works, and it's up to colleges. It's not up to the space, it's up to colleges, it's up to ourselves as individuals to educate ourselves on parliamentary procedure. So I'd just like to go back one more time to the fact that the judicial report did say that this space had the opportunity to override the speaker, and we didn't do that.
Senator, do you yield?
Yeah.
Assume the Chief Justice has a point of information.
Not necessarily a point of information. I just wanted to come back up here and ask y'all if you had any questions of me. Judicial report was a couple minutes before this, and I asked if anyone had any questions on what our opinion meant. So if any of y'all have questions for me on the opinion, I would please stress for you to ask me instead of making your own assumptions on the opinion of the court.
Speaker perfect one.
So this is, obviously my job is also to stay objective. So Chief Justice, I would just want you to, as objectively as you can, explain what the Supreme Court opinion means and the effects that it has.
Yes, of course.
So part of personal privilege, could it be pulled out by any chance?
Yes.
Is my loud?
Today? Yes, not in this one, but the one.
I don't think it will.
I swear.
Y'all are messing up my sleep schedule.
Sorry, boss.
I have it.
She's got it.
Point of order, motion for Q&A is not made.
This
My
one.
motion for Q&A for Chief Justice Zacharias.
Marcus, can you
Okay,
check
all
it?
those in favor of entering, I guess a
10 minutes.
10-minute Q&A period with the Chief Justice, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, abstentions.
So is everyone ready for me to get started? This will be read in full for accessibility since it was not in the weekly email. Again, my apologies. ASCSU Supreme Court Case 5201, opinion of the court. Supreme Court for the Associated Students of Colorado State University, October 11th, 2022. Clarification on the utilization of Senate bylaw 3, Rule 3, line F voting. Chief Justice Marcus Zacharias delivered the opinion of the court. A senator for the College of Natural Science, Ava Ayala, et al., requested an opinion regarding the Senate bylaw Rule 3, line F, which reads, all votes for ratification shall be done via secret ballot unless it is the approval of the slate. The ASCSU Supreme Court has determined the following. In a vote of 7-0, the court decided that in Senate bylaw 3F, the word unless lends to the possibility of other voting methods. As a result of the stipulation in the clause, when candidates are placed on a slate, it is not a requirement that they are ratified via secret ballot. In a vote of 6-1, the court decided that Senate bylaw 3F was not properly utilized by Speaker of the Senate, Nicholas DeSalvo. As previously stated, the default of the Senate bylaw 3F is not a secret ballot vote. Rather, the clause offers the other prescribed possibilities at the discretion of the body. That is the end of that court opinion 5201. Forgive me with all that. I forgot if there was a question before I was asked to read that in full.
I just asked for you to explain the ramifications of what y'all decided.
The ramifications of this, the court was specifically wanting to put the decision within y'all's hands. We did not believe that in this matter, having the court step in and decide for y'all would be the best course of action. So we just wanted to explain that procedure was not followed according to this court opinion. And with that information, y'all would have the ability to decide whether to or not agree with the meeting minutes. Rithik was next.
Oh, yeah,
I got a phone.
Chief Justice Zacharias. So, okay. The clause offers the other prescribed possibilities at the discretion of the body. What does that mean?
That means that in that scenario, the body should have decided how that vote was carried out. It was the opinion of the court that the body did not decide how that vote was going to be carried out. Instead, Nicholas DeSalvo decided how that vote was going to be carried out.
So how was it wrong? So was it wrong on the speaker's part or was it wrong on the body's part since they did not decide to do anything about it?
We hesitate, especially in the Supreme Court, to put anything wrong on the Senate body because we have to acknowledge there's power differences and levels. In this scenario, yes, there's possibilities that Senate could have overruled the speaker. However, that the failure of this happening should not be put on to the Senate. And said Speaker, as the leader of this branch, should accept all responsibility for what's happening within his branch, as I would in my opinion.
Another point on that is, as previously stated, the default of Senate bylaw 3F is not a secret ballot vote. Could you please elaborate on what you mean by it is not by default a secret ballot vote, and when it is not by default a secret ballot vote, who gets to decide?
So by not default, it's not default as a secret ballot vote. That just means that all options of voting are available to the Senate space, and the court decided that the Senate space should be the one deciding how to carry out that vote.
Fair enough. So with it not being a secret ballot vote, since here it is by default within our confines to decide how we want to take it, was it a violation then that it was not a secret ballot vote, or was it totally illegal that it was a that it was a placard vote? Was it legal, since as you currently just stated that it was under discretion of this chamber? Was it a legal vote or not?
It was legal as a sense because all nature of voting is available to on a slate. However, the court was of the opinion that the body was not able to make that decision, and that decision was made for them by the Speaker of the Senate, who should be facilitating conversation, not dominating conversation.
Are you? Thank you.
Senator Hill.
Previous speaker asked my question, so I yield to your done.
Senator Taylor.
Maybe I'm not just on the same page as you, but the sections 1 and 2 seem kind of to be in opposition of each other. Maybe you could kind of explain on why, even though you say that the default is not a secret ballot vote, why the bylaw was violated, and does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense. It was, trust me, we had a lengthy conversation about this during our opinion writing. So basically, where the two differences come in is the first one is defining how that set of bylaw should be read. The second one is discussing how it was used by Speaker of the Senate. It was of the court's opinion that the Speaker used that bylaw to automatically go to a placard vote, and we believe that was where the procedural mistake happened, not the fact that the placard vote happened, because all natures of voting are available to y'all if it's on a slate. Does that answer your question?
I think so.
Basically, that's just saying that nature of voting was acceptable, but was not. The procedural mistake was that decision was not given to y'all, but was taken by Speaker of the Senate. So he made that decision without a motion being made or a valid Q&A or discussion and debate over how voting should occur.
Thank you, I yield.
You still look slightly confused. I'm gonna need to try and put that in different words, because sometimes that helps. So basically, and I'm reading this as myself, what that is saying is, even though it does say, so we went over that line in Constitution Caucus, that all voting is done by secret ballot unless it's the approval of a slate. What that's saying is that even though it doesn't have to be secret ballot, that it still could be a secret ballot if that's what the body would have decided. But instead, that decision was made for y'all by Speaker DeSalvo. Does that make any sense?
A little bit. I'm a little confused as to why the decision falls upon the Speaker, because isn't the inaction of the Senate technically an action of the Senate by not deciding to oppose that? I'm just a little confused on that.
That would cause debate for if there was an action of the Senate. The court decided that decision was made very quickly, so that wasn't an action of the Senate. It was more talked about and decided on, and Senate didn't have the opportunity to make an action, if that makes sense.
Thank you. I yield.
Are you sure?
Senator Weaver.
For the 6-1 vote, was there a dissenting opinion written by any chance?
The Supreme Court justice in question did not decide to write a dissenting opinion. I presented the option to him, but he did not, that individual did not believe that it was warranted.
Do you
Hey, you.
Chairman Trick?
Quick question about, I guess, the role of the speaker in deciding how votes are made. In other circumstances, the speaker decides, oh, we'll do this by roll call vote, we'll do this by placard vote. So it's a part of the speaker's job to decide how to carry out certain votes. So what is the difference in, say, the case of a slate where the speaker makes a decision on, you know what, let's do this by placard vote? Like, why in that circumstance would the body have to decide the style of vote as not in the other circumstances?
Yeah, that was a large portion of our debate, was whether does speaker have that power to decide voting on behalf of the Senate. We dived through his job descriptions, your bylaws, the Constitution. There is nothing that gives him that power. Y'all have accepted that power from him to make that decision. And the only reason it comes up now is that y'all asked us our opinion on it. So if y'all wanted to ask an opinion on every single time he did that, most likely the opinion would still be the fact that the body has the ability to make that decision, not him. But it was simply just because that this question was arise to the Senate, or arise to the court, that we decided to answer.
Thank you, I yield. Are there any further questions for Chief Sec? Your turn.
Just really quick, was it in consideration the fact that there were a lot of new members in this space that might not have been super familiar with the bylaws and unable to know how to go do the, what's the word I'm looking for? Vote against speaker's decision, overrule the speaker or the speaker's decision? Was that something that was considered in the?
I have to answer this question. I know, right? With this opinion specifically, we did not go into depth on whether the body knew about the exact actions that y'all can take against the speaker. That's because we, like I said previously, it's on both parties for the Senate body to know how to operate in Senate. It's not just on y'all's responsibility, and it's just not on Nick's. It's a group effort on both parties. So that would be very hard for us to differentiate who in that situation failed. One thing I will say is, in most circumstances, just look to your leadership, and that should tell you how things should be run. A lot of y'all would have questions for me if my justices did not know the exact procedure for internal complaints or opinions.
Thank you, I yield.
Any further questions for Chief Justice Zacharias? Okay. Thank you.
Are we sure this time? Are we sure this time? I was here a couple minutes ago and I heard a lot of questions about the opinion. I just want to make sure. Going once, going twice.
Senator Hill, are you ready to motion?
Yes, I would like to make a motion if we are done with discussion, debate, and Q&A.
Very last time, any last questions for Chief Justice Zacharias? He will be leaving after this.
I will be.
He has that privilege.
Go home.
Senator Kipper.
I'll yield for now.
I have a question about whether ASCSU is considered a student organization.
Yes.
And I don't know how to ask this question because I'm kind of making an assumption when I'm asking. Is there, outside of ASCSU, is there an overarching document that explains how student organizations function? This is kind of outside of the scope of your job.
I'm seeing a lot of head shakes in the back row, so I'm gonna say yes. From the Supreme Court's opinion, every student subjugated to the student code of conduct process, and also every student subjugated to the overall mission of CSU. So I would believe that student organizations are still subject to that same process.
So the argument I'm trying to make is that I'm, again, speaking from assumption, but I do believe that student organizations are required, is required, or anyone in leadership positions is required to educate members coming into student organizations about their job descriptions and making sure that they're aware of their job descriptions. Did the court consider that it might have been ASCSU's responsibility to prepare the Senate space for participating in parliamentary procedure?
I won't speak on organizations outside of ACSU, but within all leadership job descriptions here, within my job description, Speaker Pro Tempore, it's our responsibilities to educate the members within our branches. With this exact court opinion, we did not consider that fact simply because that fact is more about judging the performance of the individual on his job descriptions rather than a question about the job description or the bylaw or the Constitution. That's more trying to assess an individual's ability, and that's not the process that opinions go through.
Thank you, Amy. All right, this one's just for good measure. Any last questions? Okay, seeing none, Chief Justice, you are free to go.
I hope all y'all have a great night, and please take some time for self-care tonight. All y'all deserve it. This is a hectic space sometimes, but just trust me, everyone in this space wants us to move forward and do the best work that we possibly can for the constituents that we represent. So we're having these moments of heated debate, and just know that almost every individual is arguing in good faith and trying to best represent the students and best push forward the students' ability to excel here at CSU. With that, go Rams and have a great night.
I don't have a question, don't worry. Thank you. I would like to make a motion, since we've been talking about this for an hour and a half and no voting, I'd like to, around, give or take. I would like to find a motion to vote to approve that minutes, the consent agenda, or open a vote for that.
The motion has been made to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
I second that motion.
Okay.
Point of clarification, before we vote to approve minutes, do we not have to vote to approve the consent agenda? Because the original motion was that we do not approve of the consent agenda.
Point of information, is that the same thing?
No, the minutes are in the consent agenda. They are not the consent agenda.
I'll amend that motion to approve the consent agenda, all of the consent agenda.
Okay, the motion has been made to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Okay, I need you to explain what each vote means.
Okay, thank you. So I'm kind of thinking on how to do this, because we should probably do this way too differently. Because it's already controversial, and I don't want to waste anyone's time any further. And obviously you can overrule me, but I'm going to make the decision to make this my secret ballot vote. You are welcome to overrule me, but like I said, it's already controversial, so we should probably already do it this way. I'm going to explain my decision before I make it. So we're voting on this consent agenda. Yes, I agree with everything that was in the consent agenda, the minutes. Yes. No, I don't approve of the consent agenda. I don't agree with the minutes. Abstention. I either, for whatever reason, am not educated enough on the topic to, in good conscience, make a vote, or for whatever other reason that you choose to abstain, your vote will then no longer count. Okay.
Point of information first. What I meant by saying that we first need to vote for the consent agenda, it was to then go into discussing the minutes. The original motion was that we still have to discuss whether or not the consent agenda, and thus whether or not we should follow the consent agenda at all. So like, if we disapprove the consent agenda, then the consent agenda goes to, it just doesn't, we are not having a consent agenda. Whereas it needs a unanimous vote that we approve the consent agenda. So we can then discuss what is in the consent agenda.
Yeah, one, we already descended to the consent agenda. To the way, if we approve the consent agenda, we are approving everything that's in it, which I think a lot of people on this side of the room would be against. So like, in Senate, the way that we run the consent agenda is if you approve it, we're saying, yes, we're fine with everything that's in there, let's move on. And so that's why that's why we already said, is there anyone who dissented to the consent agenda? I dissented. So then we went into discussing, passing the consent agenda. And now we've done the discussing, and now we are voting without the unanimous vote, because we already did the unanimous vote. Done.
It does. Thank you.
My second point that I had raised my hand for originally, can we separate the two things that are in the consent agenda, because we have minutes from last week still, and the SVRB stuff. Separate them into two, please.
Is that in the form of, is
Yeah,
that just in the form of motion? Okay, so the motion has been made to separate two items. The item being SFRB ratification, if I'm not wrong. And then everything else that happened, and then the meeting that happened after. Right?
Point of order, because I made the motion and it has been seconded, do we have to follow my motion? Do we have to vote on my motion first, or can I'm allowed to amend it, or do we go to Chair Athey's motion?
You could,
Can you just rescind your motion?
yeah, because then we'd have to like go back into your motion after Chair Athey's motion, and they just, yeah.
Will you amend it to say my motion?
Yeah. Hold on.
Thank you. Microphones are being jerked.
Just gonna bang it. The microphone. Sorry. Have a little bit of laughter here, okay, after this contentious debate. Point of clarification, what do you mean by that? Just kidding. You know what, I'm gonna yield, let Chair Athey make the motion, and I'll,
You asking me to make it?
you know what, I'll make my original motion plus Chair Athey's motion into my motion.
That gets so confusing, just rescind your motion.
I rescind my motion, okay.
I still make my motion.
Chair Athey, can you repeat your motion for the whole body, please?
Yes, so last week we voted on everything else that happened on 9/28. So the only things that are in the minutes is the SFRB section of 9/28 and the minutes from last week. And so I'm asking to separate the two. So we have minutes from last week and the SFRB ratification from 9/28. I want to separate the two, so we have two separate votes.
Point of information, this is required 2/3 since this is changed in the bylaws.
Why not? Sure, Kyle. I'm sure we'll get it.
I think it's a majority.
I think it's majority vote too, but
Yeah, you're also, well, that motion has been made. Is there a second?
Seconded, can I ask you a point of clarification, super quick?
Yes.
Just for those who are not aware of the conference business from last week, we elected our Constitution Caucus chair. We voted on the funding of the House Oversight bill, and we sent voter confidence clarification lex to second committee. That's all we did for conference business. So just keep that in mind when we are voting on minutes from last week.
So I'm actually thinking, since everything but the SFRB ratifications, I don't think is a topic of debate, that we could do that one by voice vote.
I move for unanimous consent on that first.
Okay, the motion has been made for unanimous
Actually-
consent.
Sorry, just for order, I think did we vote on separating the two yet?
We have not yet.
No, we have not yet. Okay, so the motion has been made to separate. So I'm just going to explain it for transparency purposes. The motion has been made to separate items. The item that would stand alone would be the SFRB ratifications, the topic that we've been talking about for a while now. And then the other one would be everything else that happened on the 9/28 session, and then the consequent session after. Okay, so I'm gonna do this by, oh, yeah. I'm just, wait, I thought the unanimous consent one, no, that one was for, that's not what she asked for.
I'll amend it to be that.
Okay, so then the motion has been made to separate those items with unanimous consent is.
I dissent.
Oh my
Cool, we'll do this, we have to do a placard vote now. So all those in favor of separating the 928 session SFRB item and then everything else, please raise your placard. So you are voting in the affirmative that you do want it separated.
I have a point of clarification. It is 10:12. The minutes from the 10:12.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
The minutes of 928, the first one you have written there, we already voted on. So it's just that, the first one and the third one. All those against. Abstentions. With a vote of 41 to 1 to 0, this motion passes.
Point of order, it was 41-1-1.
Oh, yes, sorry, it was, sorry. My apologies. Sorry, let me get my bearings, because y'all shouted so many things at me at once. Yeah, it's kind of hard. Plus you get, your legs get tired after a while. Senator Correa.
Madam Speaker, I motion for unanimous consent to accept the minutes of the 10-12 session.
The motion has been made to accept the minutes of the non-contentious part. Is there a second?
It was unanimous.
Oh, is there dissent? Oh, is there dissent? Seeing none.
Madam Speaker,
Yes, Senator Hill.
I motion to approve. I know it's not going to pass unanimously, so I'm just going to motion to, you know what? I'll just motion unanimously approve minutes of 928 with ratification of SFRB members.
There is dissent. We will do this by secret ballot vote. Yes. So just for clarification purposes, voting in the affirmative, yes, I approve, I accept everything that happened. The minutes, I approve the consent agenda. Nay, I do not approve these minutes in the consent agenda. I do not agree with XYZ. Abstention, your vote does not count for whatever reason. If you feel that you are not educated or cannot make an informed decision in good conscience, your vote just does not count. President Long.
Point of personal privilege, maybe write it on the screen in the Word document.
Like, write what it all means.
The options, yes. Like,
So yay, nay, and abstention?
yes.
Do you all know what yay, nay, and does everyone know? If anyone doesn't, please speak now. Okay, we're not doing that.
Point of information, we're not writing our names on these, correct?
No, it's meant to be a secret ballot.
Point of information, how do you vote on Zoom?
Yes, so you will send a direct message to, you can do it on Slack. You could send a direct message on Slack to parliamentarian Sonatica.
So that it stops. There we go. It stops the record.
Please
So
bring
if
your
you look at the
votes
thing,
up
it's like-
here if you are willing and able. If not, we'll go pick them up. Madam Speaker, I move for 5-minute recess while you count.
I second that.
Second.
The
All
people
those in
on Zoom
favor?
can also send a direct message
All those
to
against?
Nick DeSalvo on Zoom.
Seeing, and with that, we're gonna enter a 5-minute recess. Please be back by 9:01.
You're doing great, Karen.
Let's leave it there. Oh, I thought you
Yeah.
I'm feeling it. I know it. You are. Thank you. Did I say it? Sonatical. Sonatical.
I was trying to get like the KAR right.
Yeah.
Because I feel like a lot of people say like
No, it's just cut. Please, cut.
yeah, mine's Carracelo. Never
Yeah,
said
Carracelo. I really like it.
Carracelo. Carracelo. Yeah.
Like, so why do you have two last names? How?
Yeah, so one is my dad, one is my dad. That's why a lot of people from Latin America will have to because culturally. So then when I get married, and I have children, my kids would have Carracero in their names. So they would be Carracero.
So Carracelo is your mom. And when you get married, you won't be changing it.
Oh, hi, Felicia. So I'll be Carracelo. It's really cool.
Yeah.
After this, if you still have questions, please raise your placards and I'll take care of those then.
Sorry, I'm tired of standing. My back hurts. What was the question?
The performance of candidates in person.
I was wondering if the motion could be amended to allow for you to speak about the performance of the SFRB members in question.
Sure. So just so I'm clear, are we talking about Stephen Laffey and Adeline Schumer, or are we just talking about Stephen Laffey? Or are we talking about all of SFRB in general?
I just wanted to have your opinion consulted on the matter.
Okay.
Actually, sorry. Based on the discussions that happened at the SFRB ratification, do we think that it's best to get personal opinion, especially when there's not necessarily any action that can be taken other than just so that's kind of an open-ended question because I don't have the answer to that. I yield to probably someone on this side of the room who can answer that better than me. Anyone wants it?
I think it may be better to respect everyone's time and do this when we have a specific motion behind it, something that can be done, as Sheriff was saying.
Okay.
So in that aspect, taking into consideration that one thing that has been voted on was the vice chair. Y'all aren't gonna like me, the vice chair is Stephen Laffey.
There's also done with a minimum number present, but again, I don't think that this is necessarily like I think it was Senator Dennison that said this, that we kind of need a motion. This is not going in circles. Can I do my original request for a vote first, Senator Doyle? Chair Doyle?
I just, yeah.
Cool, okay. Bringing it back to the original thing, I move for, literally, I just want to vote, and everybody votes once. Would you rather have the SFRB members come back? Or would you rather we just vote on them without them here? Those are the two options, or abstain. That's what I want before I make them. That's a motion for that, so, but.
Okay.
Also, there was somebody that still had a question. If I could, I would like to hear that question before we make that.
Okay, Senator Taylor.
I was just going to have like a bit of discussion actually, because I just wanted to say that I think if we have to vote on these people again, we should pull each of the candidates that got accepted back into the Senate and do the whole thing again. Because if we waste a few people's time with the politicization of the Senate, we should waste everybody's time with that. And we should have to explain to them why we pulled them back. So I think that we should be doing each of the candidates again and not just a couple of them. And I think that we should do this at a time when we can have all of the candidates in the Senate to have Q&A and discussion and debate and do it like it was a few weeks ago.
Point of information, the revote will be on every single SFRB member, just to clarify. We're doing everything that happened related to SFRB that night. But your opinion is to bring everyone back.
I think that we should have them all come back so that we can have a second session of Q&A and discussion and debate, yeah.
Cool. I motion for the vote on those two options, Mr. Speaker. It's a vote for a vote, but that's how that works.
Okay, so just to clarify, the vote without them here, would that be a vote on each individual candidate? Or how would that vote take place? Because, I mean, it was difficult because they were put on a slate. And that's how they were voted on initially. They weren't voted on separately. Following the precedent of the court and what happened last year, the court found it to just bring all the candidates back so that procedure could be more easily followed. I'm just curious, if we were to vote without them here, how would that process take place? What would that look like?
The way that I would see that happening is that it would be, and this is up for anyone else's position if they would like, the way that I would do it is that we do it
it's basically the same as if all of the question and answer stuff had happened and we are just now voting on it. I think a motion, probably for simplicity, we could motion to put everyone on the slate again, just so we're making sure we're hitting everything. But that would probably get more into rotation. Seeing as that vote was done on a slate, we could start off on a slate and go from there through voting, just like we should have done. If that makes sense, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah. From what I remember, last year when the candidates were brought back in, just for more context, we really didn't go through the whole process of Q&A and presentation. It was just like, because I was one of them, I was like, hi, I'm Nick DeSalvo. There were no questions. And then we just got down to the revote. Procedurally, that's really what happens with every vote. And so I would fear if we were to break from that procedure this time, it would be different in the future. Again, I don't think bringing them all back in would change anything or the vote that this body is going to take when that revote happens. But just procedurally, I think that's probably what's best for the body. Senator Correa.
I'd just like to point out that in our bylaws, since we decided to everything that happened during the ratification process, my phone switched off. It clearly states that officers subject to ratification by the Senate need to be presented for 10 minutes, and then there'll be a Q&A session as well. And since we have decided to all of that happening, this has to happen again. It's part of procedure. It has to happen.
Okay, is there anyone who's against bringing one back? Cool, seeing none, I move to revote on ratification, doing all of the ratification again.
Okay, so this is a process where the vice president will have to reach out to all the members. I would assume this would happen next week. So that motion has been made, right?
Yes, the motion
To revote next week
Just-
after they're presented.
Just to, yes, but I don't think we should set a time limit on when that vote needs to happen, because if the fact that a revote is happening is announced at SFRB, that gives the SFRB members less than 48 hours to be able to spend their Wednesday night here. So it might be better to happen 2 weeks out. I kind of would be willing to leave that up to the interpretation of the vice president. So I don't really feel like that's necessary. Vote's not on when, vote's just on we're gonna redo it.
The vice president has something to provide.
So just so I'm understanding that I give the most accurate information to SFRB. Hypothetically, even though, yeah, if members were not able to get through the ratification, is there a possibility to bring them back again and try and get ratified again? Or is that like they don't get through the ratification and then that's it?
Yes, I think what you mean is we bring them back for ratification if they get voted down. You're asking if we could bring the people who get voted down back to do a re-vote?
Yes, because I know that that's a question that I'm going to get asked and I want to make sure that I have the most accurate information.
From my understanding, no. I don't think there's anything in the Constitution that specifies it. I guess it would be up to a court opinion. Yeah, I'm really unsure in that regard.
I think, well, there might not necessarily, I didn't double check, but I think there might not necessarily be currently anything that says you can't bring them back. It's kind of set for them to go in. So the Senate has already said and say, one procedure is followed correctly.
Of course. Yeah, no, I understand that. Like I said, I just wanted to double check because I know that's a question that I will get asked. So I wanted to make sure that I have the most accurate information.
Also wanted to do a quick point of clarification. I was going to make this announcement later, but I will not be present that Wednesday night. I didn't expect this to be the vibe, but I will not be there. So if we need to ratify all members, we simply logistically can't do it next Wednesday. As a member, as a current member of SFRB, Senate can take that as a table.
So I guess we would then be voting on this when all members of SFRB are able to come to the Senate.
Whenever Vice President Denville thinks it's an appropriate time to hold the application, we can do it then. Vote is just like, we need to review it. Motion is just renewed.
Cool. So that was the motion. I had asked for clarification. Is there a second for that motion to re-ratify the candidates, have them represent when they're all able to?
Seconded.
Okay, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? Okay, this passes. So that'll happen whenever.
I will be in communication with you about it.
Okay. Now moving on to confidence business. Would the parliamentarian please put 2 hours on the confidence clock?
Sure.
We'll start with the ratification of the director of academics. I believe the president is going to present that candidate.
Wait, do we have a member of the judicial branch present?
Nick will do it. All right, hello Senate. So yeah, we chose Sabina Gebru for our choice for Director of Academics. She's a third year HDFS major. She's also involved in the Black Student Alliance here at CSU. We interviewed 5 candidates for this position. They all performed great interviews. We just felt that Sabina's ideas that she brought to the table would be to the greatest service of the CSU student body. And yeah, we just feel like she would be a great addition to the executive branch. And Sabina, if you have anything to say, now's your time.
Hello, Senate Space. I'm Sabina Gadru. I just had an introduction from President Long. I was chosen to be the Director of Academic Relations in the Executive Branch for ASCSU, and I'm going to just tell you a little bit about myself. So when I first applied for the job, I was kind of unclear on what the job description was, what I would be doing in the position. My mom's calling. Sorry, Mom. I talked to President Long about it, and President Long basically explained to me that the Director of Academic Relations position is almost a creative position on campus, and what I would be doing in that role is influencing how academics are impacting students, how students are feeling about their academics. I'd be working with a lot of offices, talking to students and learning more about how students are experiencing CSU. And so the official description, when you go to the handshake and you look at the position, it says I'll be meeting with faculty and staff from the university's undergraduate and graduate program to offer an engaging, high quality educational experience for a diverse mix of learners. And so things that I would be influencing in my position would be scholastic standards, which are things such as what constitutes passing or failing a class, or what constitutes the requirements for staying a CSU student. For example, what happens when you go onto academic probation? What happens when you can't meet your financial requirements? Those are some things that I'll be handling. I'll also be working with the TILT Center, which is the Institute for Learning and Teaching. And the TILT Center focuses on doing research on how we can more effectively, as both students and teachers, create an academic atmosphere here at CSU. I'd also be working with the Office of the Provost. I know earlier, previous Provost Mary Peterson spoke about the reaffirmation of accreditation. And those are some of the people that I'd be working with. My primary position, if I'm just gonna like layman's terms, I'm gonna be influencing how academics are organized here at CSU. And so some of the qualifications that I have, I would say I have many. One, I have experience with representing students' voices. I was a senator, or I am currently a senator in ASCSU for the College of Health and Human Sciences. I have been since May of 2022, so just about this college. I have been senator for just about 5 months, and by trial of fire, I have learned a lot about
what it means to be an ASCSU and what it means to represent student voices. And also I have been able to gauge a spectrum of what ASCSU wants to see with their personal interests in the space, as well as who they want to represent outside the student body. And so that's one of my experiences. Another experience I have is a presidential role in Black Student Alliance, which is a student organization here at CSU. I've been the president of Black Student Alliance since December of 2021. And Black Student Alliance is an organization that advocates for the academic and personal interests of Black students at CSU. I know that is a very personal organization to me since I do identify as Black. It doesn't represent the entire student body. However, it does represent a marginalized community on campus. So I can say that I have experience with representing marginalized communities on campus. Let me take a break. I'm kind of nervous. In addition, I work as an inclusive community assistant for housing and dining services in Laurel Village. Laurel Village is Pinon and Alpine halls. They're residential halls here at CSU. And my job as inclusive community assistant is to connect my residents with resources on campus. And so because of that position, I'm very familiar with resources all across campus and even off campus. And so I work with my residents every single day to connect them to resources on campus. And I have prerequisite knowledge and information about how to get students connected to things that they need. And then my last qualification is that I'm currently a peer mentor in the Black African American Cultural Center, which is an SDPS office. I have experience with representing freshmen. I'm mentoring freshmen currently. I have 15 freshmen who are assigned to me at the beginning of the year, and we are in close communication, and it's my job to make sure that they're having a positive experience at a primarily white institution. That's another example of how I'm representing student voices. How much time do I have?
Four minutes.
So another aspect of this job would be networking, working as academic relations and working with a lot of offices on campus. I'll also be working with a lot of offices outside of campus. And I have previous experience with working with resources off campus and connecting students with resources outside of the CSU sphere. One example in which I've done this is I created an internship through my student organization with the Larimer County District Attorney's Office, which is currently in the works. We are currently working with the Larimer County District Attorney's Office to create curriculum, and the internship itself is an opportunity for all CSU students, regardless of your identity, to go into the space and learn more about diversity, equity, inclusion, and social justice in the legal sphere, and see how DEIJ is impacting juvenile court system cases and how your identity, your racial identity, your gender identity, or other identities can impact how you're being sentenced. I have a background in educational affairs, which is what this job encompasses. My career goals are to go into educational research, and so this job fits my personal agendas pretty well. I'm very excited to be in this position. I have a personal background of having a lot of minoritized and marginalized identities on campus. And so because of that, I can fairly say I can represent all kinds of student voices. I'm a first generation student. I'm a minority on campus as a Black woman, and I also identify as disabled. And so because of this, it's allowed me to explore different modes of education on campus, and also allowed me to become an advocate for a lot of different communities. Thank you. And then external background, I am again involved in SDPS offices, particularly the back office, Black African American Cultural Center. I am an ICA. I work closely with transfer students because that is the hall I am assigned to. And because of that position, I have become a lot more aware of struggles that transfer students face at CSU, which is something I'll be addressing in my position as academic relations director. And in addition to that, I have been a mentor for at-risk youth meaning ages 10 to 18, so pre-college. And I'm learning a lot about how the adverse childhood experiences of children can impact your college experience. And so I'm hoping that in my position now, I'm going to be able to use that information to influence academic
decisions so that they can cater a little bit better to students who are coming from at-risk backgrounds. And with that, I yield my time and I open up for discussion and questions.
All right, I saw Senator Hill first, Chair Shop, and then just outside. Yeah, and it is Q&A.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Hi, Senator DeBrew, for now, hopefully. So I have one question for you. Academics is something that I really value. And this is a very good position that you're selected for. Because obviously this is a university, so it's kind of central to the reason why we're here. And my question for you is like, do you have any like goals do you want to see within the university for academics? And if you do, what are those goals and how we can, you know, professors or our learning environment, excuse me, can best adapt to students university life?
Absolutely. So that was something I was considering, that I would have the position and the opportunity to make change while I'm in this position. And so I kind of made a pros and cons list of what I've noticed in the academic sphere at CSU and things that I noticed that are not so good. And so some things that I saw were positive that I appreciated, I think we can continue, is that there's an increased focus lately on global voices and perspectives, which is amazing. I think since, for example, you know, we have like a globalized economy. I think we should also have a globalized education, and we should have globalized voices from all over the world. I've also noticed something positive is that student involvement at CSU is really, really high in comparison to other universities, especially when it comes to academic coordination decisions. And that's something that I want to maintain. I think students should have a voice in what they're doing at university, since we are paying for the experience we're having. Another thing I've noticed that is positive is transparency of resources and decisions, especially regarding finances. I think it's very accessible. We can all find information about how money is being spent, especially in academics, and we as students can be aware of that. And another positive, the last thing I've noticed is there's an increased focus on students' positive experiences and activities on campus. This is not so related to academics, but I do think that it is something, you know, if you're having a fun time in your college, you're also more likely to do well in your school. So some of the things I've noticed that might need a little tweaking and adjusting. One is making academic resources more equitable for academically challenged communities. I myself identify as disabled. I have an invisible disability, which prevents me from being able to learn like a neurotypical student. And so I've learned from experience that there are not a lot of accessible resources for students like me. And I know that I'm not the only student on campus. And so I think that's something from personal experience that I'd like to focus on. A second thing is increasing diversity, equity, inclusion, and social justice presence in curriculum in all colleges. This was a project I was working on, or this is a project I'm working on as a senator in College of Health and Human Sciences. I became very aware that there was a lack of diversity and equity in the curriculum in my particular major, which is Human Development Family Studies. And I noticed that what I'm learning about is about middle-class white families. And that doesn't represent all students at CSU, and it doesn't represent all people in the United States, much less people in the world. And I was concerned that students who are in my major are graduating with not enough information to go out into the world and be global citizens. And I think CSU does talk about wanting to promote diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think where we can start is through curriculum. Thank you.
Reclaim my time and ask one more question.
Yes.
Now, there are many professors in this university. As you know, a lot of them good, but there are a few that are, some talk to my constituents. My constituents have told me that some professors are not so great, as in very, let's just say, not nice is I think the way I'm putting it, or does not uphold values that I think we all think that will have our university. So how are you gonna help hold professors accountable to make a learning environment safe for all students? You understand my question?
I think I do. Are you asking what I'm doing, what I will be doing in my role to, excuse me, to make sure that students' voices are being heard when they have complaints about professors?
Or, how are you gonna help, more so how are you gonna hold professors accountable to the professors who are not upholding the initiatives that's in discussion right now?
Correct. So I'm not currently aware if there's any procedures set in place for professors to go through when they do come into accusations of unfairness, bias, or any sort of malicious intent in the classroom. I also do understand and recognize that as students, when we pay our tuition and we sign that I'm going to CSU, we actually do sign some of our rights away, so that when we're in the class, we can't legally stop professors from speaking their true viewpoints. And so in the classroom, there's very limited rights that students have to begin with. I think that is an overarching problem when it comes to holding professors accountable because they have that legal protection. But I do think that CSU also has responsibility to protect its students. And in that situation, I would do my best to be a voice to advocate for creating a system in which professors are not protected by that legal component, and in which professors can acknowledge that they have caused harm, or professors can acknowledge that they are not meeting the standards. Thank you so much. So I think because I do, this is a position of power, I do acknowledge that I can have a voice. I think that's where I can start.
Thank you. I appreciate your answers. Mr. Speaker, are you?
Can I make a motion to exhaust the speakers list?
Second.
Yeah, all those in favor of exhausting the speakers, let's say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions, this passes unanimously. Chair Trout, you're next.
Good evening. All right, my friend, how do you plan to balance work, ASCSU, and school?
Well, as academic relations director, I can say now that my new slogan is I'm a student first, and so are you. And so I have always stood by that I am a student first. But then again, I also do acknowledge that I am a human first, because unfortunately, I don't have the privilege of prioritizing my academics sometimes because of the background I come from. So I know that moving through my time at CSU, I'm a third year now, but when I was a freshman, I was only 17. At the time, I graduated high school when I was 16. And so coming into CSU, I was confused, to say the least. I didn't know how to manage my time. I didn't know how to be by myself. And now I can say that I have. And that's because I've kind of learned by trial of fire what it's like to be a college student, made a lot of mistakes. And I can say that now I have realized that I'm a human first, and then a student, and then everything else comes next. And then I've also realized that when I focus on being a student first, and I have all those priorities squared away, that does actually open up significantly more time for everything else, which seems kind of backwards, but I've found in the past year that that's how it's been working for me, that when I prioritize my education, I'm finding that I have more time for extracurriculars, I'm having more time for friends, and I'm having more time for work.
Awesome, thank you. You can answer all my questions before you even ask them, so I'll yield to redundancy.
Thank you, Chair Salazar.
Yes, hello. Sorry, let me just organize myself. How do you plan to foster DEI and academics on your role?
I'm not gonna lie, DEI is it's me. I am DEI. It's since coming to CSU, recognizing how little advantages I'm having because of my identity as a Black woman, it has become one of the most central focuses that I've had in my academics. And I have also realized that having a DEI focus is beneficial to everybody, regardless of your identity. Because when you have a DEI perspective on the world, then that's when you can really be inclusive. And so because of that, I recognize that DEI is really, really important. So like I said earlier, one of the things that
I wanted to work on is having DEI be a central component of curriculum in all colleges and making sure that all curriculum is being taught from the perspective of many different types of people so that we are understanding concepts from many different perspectives. So an example I can give in human development family studies is we did in my HDFS 101, my intro to HDFS class, we had this, it's kind of like The Sims. We got to raise a baby. I was like 18 to 80 years old. I was, a person. And then I got to raise a baby. I got to have children. I got married. I went to school. And the whole thing was very white centered and not at all descriptive of what I, as a person, would ever go through. And so when I was doing that, I was like, this is really interesting because now I'm getting to learn about what it's like for people who identify as like middle class, because it was definitely like, at least it was very classist, how they're going to experience life, give or take. But other people who are middle class will never have an opportunity to do this, this simulation to learn what it's like to go through life as a low income person. They're never going to learn what it's like to go through life as a person of color. They're never going to learn what it's like to go through life disabled. And so I think that HDFS class, it did teach an important perspective in America, which is the middle class American dream, but it does not actually teach for what America is, which is a melting pot. And so I think we can do a better job at making curriculum more inclusive of different identities in that way.
I really appreciate the answer. Mr. Speaker, I motion to approve this question. Okay, there are two more people left on the speakers list. Anyone on the speakers list, are you just really against moving the previous question, exiting before I entertain that?
I would like to ask my question.
Me too.
Okay. Would you like to amend your motion to just exhaust the speakers list? Oh, yeah, my bad. Then yeah. Do you want to rescind your motion? Yeah, sorry. So do you yield your time? Yeah, you did. Parliamentarian Sanarkar.
Hello. President Long mentioned that you have some really good ideas about your role. So I would really like if you could elaborate a little on that.
Yes, I can. So the project, when I talk about curriculum and DEIJ, I think that was my biggest focus because I'm starting to realize, or I'm fearing that people are graduating CSU and going out into the world and not being global citizens just because the education is not preparing them well for that. And that's going to be one of my biggest projects this year, is working with different colleges to understand how curriculum is written and what is impacting the curriculum. For example, how do the stakeholders in each college, how are they impacting what curriculum is approved or not approved? And then in addition to that, seeing how the diversity of the professors in each college, the professors in each major, how it's impacting the graduation rates of different identities. So what I'm doing this year is, it was a personal project and now it's about to become an academic relations project. So lucky, God bless. What I'm going to be doing is doing some research on how DEIJ is either being upheld or not upheld and what the long-term consequences are going to be for CSU graduates.
Do you have any ideas specifically for international students?
At the moment, I do not. However, I do have international friends. One of my coworkers, she's an international student and we are good friends at this point. We have talked a lot about what it's like being an international student at CSU, and she has raised a lot of complaints about lack of resources, lack of understanding, and a lack of support from their college and feelings of isolation. So I do know that international students face more than non-international students. And that is something I'm going to acknowledge and do more research on and follow up on.
Thank you. I really appreciate your answers. I yield, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Chair Doyle. Finish this off.
How do you plan on representing other colleges and other programs like graduate school?
So my job description as academic relations director is not just with undergraduate programs, but also with graduate programs. Because I am an undergraduate student, I have more prerequisite knowledge, information about undergraduate stuff. But you do bring up a good point. I currently do not know much about the graduate systems and how they work. I do know that they work a little bit differently than undergraduate systems in terms of what GPA requirements are, scholastic standards, and I understand that they're upheld to a different level. For example, if you didn't know, graduate students have to have a 3.0 GPA to be considered good standing, while undergrad only has to have a 2.0. And I think there's a lot of differences and discrepancies between undergrad and graduate students, but I will do more research so I can be more knowledgeable about that.
Thank you for your time. I yield.
Thank you. So with that, we'll end the period of Q&A. I'd ask the candidates to leave the room and we'll enter a period of discussion and debate. Yeah, Officer McCarty. Yeah, we got it. Seriously. All right, so who was first? Was it Officer Bakari first? And then I saw some other folks. I saw Chair Salazar. Okay, go ahead, Officer Bakari.
Hi, y'all. So I do work with Sabina sometimes. I'm an RA, also in Northside at Gilbert Hall. She's an IC and she does a lot of amazing programs to like engage the students. I'm gonna hand out over there. And I have no doubt to her ability to fulfill this role. She's a very open person. She will do things 110%, sometimes 200%. But as she does say, she's a student first. But I have confidence in this candidate, and I'd like to motion the previous question.
Okay. So there's been a motion to previous question, which would mean we'd end the period of discussion and debate. There was a second, so all those in favor of doing that, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? Okay, this passes. So with that, do you want to make the motion?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to motion. Oh my God. Okay, I'd like to motion unanimous consent.
Okay, is there any dissent to that motion? All right, we will now do this by secret ballot. So for clarification, only senators can vote on this because it's not a procedural thing, it's a vote.
Can I make a motion?
Yeah, unless you're
for
saying
this to be a placard vote? That's okay to do, no?
no. No, not for ratifications of candidates that aren't on the slate.
Can you tell us the options that you have when voting as well?
Okay, yes means you want this candidate to be approved. No means you don't, and then abstentions means your vote doesn't count. Yeah, if this wasn't specified, if you're an associate and you're filling in for a senator or one of your senators left, you can vote in their place.
Is
Spice on. Yeah. Yeah.
Also, sorry, point for clarification. Who here still has a questionnaire? Does anyone still have the questionnaire or did they all get collected? I'll talk to you later.
And then to those on Zoom, same process that we followed with the other secret ballot.
Are you doing, Robert? Are you doing, Robert? It's another day in Senate.
You know, I was like, it shouldn't go that long. We should be done by 8:30.
I was very confident. Very.
All right, so with a vote of 30-1-0, this candidate is ratified. Go ahead and bring the candidate. Yeah, we'll wait until she walks in.
I will say it. My lord. Proud of you always.
Congrats. So Sabina, with the absence of the Chief Justice, I have the honor of administering the oath of office to you. I screenshotted it.
Can someone take my picture? I have to send it to
I
my
got
mom.
you.
Okay,
That's why you defend call.
Not yet.
go ahead and recite after me. I state your name.
I, Sabina Gebru,
Do solemnly swear to defend and uphold
do solemnly swear to defend and uphold
the rules and regulations set forth
the rules and regulations set forth
by the Constitution of the Associated Students of Colorado State University
by the Constitution of the Associated Students of Colorado State University
and will rightfully perform
and will rightfully perform
the duties of my office
the duties of my office
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Speaker, I have a motion.
Okay, yeah, Senator Hill.
Due to me speaking with my senator colleagues and due to the amount of people who left, I'm gonna motion to adjourn.
I second that.
Okay, so this does need a 2/3. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? Okay, that 2/3 threshold is passed.
Before y'all go, I just have something very, very, very quick to say. I wrote it out. It's not very long, but it just says, "Hello, y'all. I work at the library at 6:30, so you guys might see me leave. You all might see me leave a little early. I love seeing y'all be authentic and advocate for your beliefs, regardless of how they may be perceived by others. It is important to note that everyone has a different opinion from you, and that regardless of how you may think, you need to respect others. Over the last few weeks, I've seen y'all grow and learn on how to thrive in a space that is known to not be the most welcoming. For those of y'all in the space that have been here for a little bit, you may have heard me say, I am proud of you always. For the newbies, I just also want you to know that I am proud of you always, and have a good night."
Before you leave, I have something to announce. Tomorrow I will be meeting with Chair Doyle, Senator Doyle, to update the Constitution. If you have any opinions, if you wanna tell me anything, any ideas, any suggestions, we will be meeting tomorrow at 12 p.m. at the ASCSU office. Thank you.
And I have one thing before everyone leaves. Have a good night.
Yeah, free vegetables from the CSU Plaza, tomorrow from 2 to 5. Friends Against Hunger. Free food.
If anybody needs a community service opportunity, hit me up.
Constitution Caucus will be meeting tomorrow from 4 to 5 p.m. and we will be discussing we will be reviewing proposed changes to Article 1, reviewing the role of accusations in confidence votes, and starting our review of Article 2 of the Constitution. Thank you.
I'll send my committee. Give me 1 second. No, please. Pretty please. I will send out my senator and committee reports in the Slack. There's a lot of important details that we couldn't get to tonight, but it's important for everyone. That's all.
If you're looking for volunteer opportunities, Senator Sanchez has a great opportunity for y'all to get involved with the Latinx Latina community. So please contact her for any more information.
Yes.
Is anybody walking back towards Edwards? Also, let me know if any of you need a ride when it's dark out.
I just want to walk this one. Hurry up.